Morning, everybody. Good. Good afternoon, good evening.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Miriam, I just wanted to share with you the news that came out. Remote meetings are on through, I think, April.
I just saw that. That's good news.
That's it.
Thank goodness.
Yeah,
So am I a co-host?
I will make you one.
That'd be great. Hi, Nan.
Hi, Miriam. My son was on a moment ago. He'll be joining us again. He's been helping me organize this.
I think I see him.
And I'm going to make Carrie the host. So when I leave, she'll be the host. Okay.
Great.
Sounds good.
If everybody stops bouncing around for a second.
Hi, Robin. I'm going to take a quick break and go get myself some water. I'll be right back.
What a pretty screensaver Miriam has.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Beautiful. I love the colors in it.
Hi there.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi, Scott. So I think we are expecting Beth. So maybe we'll just, oh, Beth's here. Good. Hi, Beth.
Here.
Okay,
Hi.
Kate, add people as they come in. Okay, well, let's get started because we have a 7 o'clock RDA and Jesse and Nan Dill are here for 120 Cushman Road. And there's going to be a little bit of a change in our agenda for tonight. We had on the agenda 7:30 the notice of intent for Ames Pond. However, there was kind of a mix up in the email communication with Kristen McDonough, and they sent out a legal notice saying it was at 8:30. So out of an abundance of caution, we're going to do it at 8:30. And if anybody shows up at 7:30, we'll let them know. It just is. So we'll get some other things out of the way before 8:30. I'm sorry about that. I was trying to make the scheduling more compressed as we had talked, but.
Right. Talking about scheduling, I just want to say, if this meeting goes past 10, and we've had 3-hour meetings before, I have to leave at 10 to pick up my daughter at the airport.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Hopefully we won't go past 10. Let's just make that not happen. Make that happen that we won't go past 10. All right. So Jesse and Nan, let's talk about your project. So I'm glad we're finally able to make this happen and bring this before the commission. Do you want to just describe for a few minutes what you want to be doing? And then if I need to bring up the site plan, I can do that.
Sure. The heart of the problem is I have some huge potholes in my driveway, and I've been told that it's too far gone to repair. I've been doing makeshift patches for the past few years, but they're getting deep. And a couple of contractors told me that it had to be removed and a new one put in. I'm not changing the path of it anyway. It's just replacing old asphalt with new. There is an adjunct problem that I'm hoping to solve at the same time, but the solution is primarily off my land in the easement area. We've been having increasing trouble over the past 5 years with a lot of water pooling at the base. It seems to be in concert with the road getting resurfaced and filled, that for whatever reason, we're getting more runoff between the road and where my driveway is. We've talked with Tim from the highway department. He came out here and looked at it at Miriam's suggestion. We discussed him taking care of the fact that the culverts have filled in over the years and they need to be redug a bit to be able to collect the drainage that was intended originally. And he suggested that when we do the driveway, we have a dip at the end of it that will help the water pool into the natural location. So that's the heart of it. There's also a question that because I'm such a steep hill, most cars can't make it up in the winter. So I have parking spaces landing at the bottom of the driveway. The suggestion was made that we try and move one space up a bit. And that's going to be contingent on 2 boulders that are sticking out of the ground. As Tim said to me, the boulders rule. We can decide whatever we want, but if they're really big ones and we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg, we can't move them. If they're smaller, they can be moved and the parking space can shift up. I understand from Miriam that there's some concern from our Shutesbury forestry person that may put a car close to a particular tree. I went down and I looked at it for other possibilities and took some pictures and measurements. And if I were to change it from a space that is currently parallel to the road to a diagonal, it would then clear the trees by about 8 feet on each side, which I think would alleviate the problem of it being too close to a tree. And Jesse and I have photos open on our monitors that we could share with the committee if that would be of any help. But core issue is we're replacing a very dead driveway, not changing direction or anything, just putting it back where it was. If we could flatten it a degree or 2 at the top, that would be lovely. If we can't, we can't. Would love to take care of that increasing drainage problem with a dip, coupled with the work Tim's talking about doing about clearing out the culverts. And then wanting to find a simple solution on the parking space. I should also mention that Tim suggested that the contractor remove in the parking space, remove the top 3 or 4 inches of loam so that there will be better drainage. And I'd already talked to the contractor about putting some gravel there.
Okay.
And Miriam and I had also talked about some area that might have wood chips, of which I have plenty since a tree came down last year.
Yeah.
Um,
Just for the benefit of the commission, because I don't think I shared anything with them, Don Wakaluk had raised a concern that there was a tree that is, I think, outside of the right of way, or maybe just outside the right of way. But the parking area is in the right of way. And that if it moves closer uphill to the roots of that tree, it may jeopardize that tree, in which case, if it dies, it'll become a hazard tree. So his recommendation had been take the tree down. It's outside of the right of way, it's outside of the buffer zone. So, you know, the landowner can do that without a permit from us. But Nan is indicating that she doesn't want to do that at this point, but she understands that that may become an issue later, that if it dies and it becomes dangerous, then it'll be what it is. When we first talked about this, we just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that this project, part of it is happening on the in the right of way. And we want to make sure that it's, you know, that we have the town's permission, or that you have the town's permission really to be doing this grading in the right of way. I think that's understood. Is that right, Becky?
Yep.
Yep. And what I heard back from Tim via Becky is that there's this kind of paved stormwater culvert on Weatherwood Road that goes under Cushman Road and then empties into the buffer zone by the pond, by Atkins Reservoir. And there was some new telephone poles that were put up at that intersection. And Tim thinks that some of what might have been a pre-existing swale was filled in because of those poles being put in, and that possibly over time, part of this swale on the side of the road was filled in by Nan having gravel down there for parking.
The gravel just was put in last winter because the
Just
puddles were
last-
too deep. That's
Okay.
very reason and not
So-
deep.
So the bottom line was that Tim was saying that he didn't feel this was a new stormwater feature. It was repair of an existing one. If it was a new stormwater feature, it would require an RDA. If it's repair of an existing one, it doesn't require an RDA. So that's really up for the commission to decide how you want to go with that. Obviously, it would be more expedient for, I think, Nan to be able to not wait for another RDA to get approved, because she's trying to get this scheduled for the beginning of August. So that would
Right.
make things very complicated for her.
They're currently booked for the second week of August, and we've already had to move it in order to go through this process once. If we don't make that date, it may not get done this year,
Okay.
depending on the contractor situation. And just so the committee can visualize the amount of gravel we're talking about, it was 6 bags from Home Depot. So it's not a huge amount that we brought in. You can see some of it to the side of the car.
So I just pulled up for people could see, this is the tree that we were talking about. My recommendation to Nan is that if there's any areas of disturbed soil after the excavation for this, that she put down a couple of inches of tree,
You
wood
said wood chips or straw.
wood chips will work well if you're planning on just letting it naturally revert back to forest as opposed to trying to plant grass or something. Does anybody have any more questions or discussion about this? Becky, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to mention Steve Sullivan is here under Shannon's dad, and he went down to look at the site today.
Hi, Steve. Yeah. Steve, do you have anything you want to add? You're muted.
No, you pretty much covered it. I looked at the cut they're gonna make isn't gonna increase the water runoff there at all. So but just by throwing wood chips on there, that's gonna work good. But no, it's all good to go on our end. But it is true that there is a swale that ran both directions from the driveway, and we haven't cleaned either one of those out in about 3 years.
Yeah. Looks like the culvert at the other end of her driveway away from Weatherwood needs to be cleaned out. When we were visiting, it looked pretty gunked up.
Yeah, between the snow plows and the grading of the road, and then that, yeah, they get filled in.
So does the commission have any more questions? Any more information that we need to make a decision?
Would a different photo be of any help to you?
Not if we're all decided. I mean, let's just, figure out if we need anything. You guys have all looked at the site plan, the sketches that were sent out.
Yeah,
Full
plus I
project.
looked at it too in person, so.
Good.
I did
Okay.
too. I don't have any concerns.
All right.
Me either, and I think I was at this site
Oh.
visit.
So I have a draft permit written up. So if somebody wants to make a motion to close the public meeting, we can move on.
I'll make a motion to close the public meeting on 120 Cushman Road.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Font, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Khan,
Hi.
Wilson.
Hi.
Okay, So I do have, thank you, Nan. What we're going to do is we're just going to work out the details for special conditions, and then tomorrow we will email you a copy of the permit, and we will also send one by certified mail. And then you're good to go.
Thank you all very, very much. My thanks to my son who did the diagrams and a bunch of the paperwork for me.
Okay.
So,
I mean, you're welcome. You can stay and listen to our discussing what we're going to put in the permit. And you at this point, but you're welcome. By all means, stay so you know what to expect. Should I pull up the draft? So this was another situation where we do two determinations, one under the bylaw and one under DEP, the act. And so we did this with a few others recently. So we have to have two different determinations. So I've got them filled out, and let me pull them up. And you can take a look at the forms. Here we go. Final documents. All right, so this would be under DP. And I'm going to do a screen share and figure out how to do that. And okay. I just want to make sure that I haven't made any mistakes. So these are the drawings. Yeah, the date. This is driveway. Base of the driveway is in the buffer zone. Which is why we have jurisdiction under the bylaw. And then for determination, I have that it is subject to the bylaw, but not the act. This was number 6 that we filled out. And then under a negative determination, number 1, that it's not an area under the protection of the act. Is that correct, everybody? Does that look right?
I guess I'm wondering why it's not jurisdictional under the act if the Atkins Reservoir is, considered a lake or a pond, so it is jurisdictional under the act and has a 100-foot buffer zone.
Yeah, I think because it's a minor exempt activity, driveway repaving. But they're doing more than driveway repaving. They're doing some excavation. It's more than just, and they're enlarging an area.
Yeah, okay.
But it doesn't I mean, if you feel like it is, I can change the other.
No, I was thinking more of jurisdictional area. I wasn't thinking of exempt activity, but yeah, you're right. I think it would be.
What do you think? Is Janice there?
Yeah, I think it's more like the 3 that it's within the buffer zone but won't alter an area because they are doing some grading, right? In that
Right, it's
area.
more that it's not really a minor exempt activity. You're right.
I mean,
Okay.
in the end, it's still fine, but it's just in terms of,
Okay.
yeah, they are in the buffer zone and they are doing more than just the exact footprint of the existing
Okay,
driveway.
so
Yeah.
let me go back to the form. It makes it easier for sure. I already have the special conditions, but let me go, let me stop screen share and let me screen share the document that I had open. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
So here's my draft and driveway. Maybe I'm not making it clear enough in here that changes the parking area. I guess I say that.
well, the parking area as it stands is not on my land.
Oh, right. That's fine. And then what we're saying here is I'm moving down. The area is, I do check off 5 because it is under the bylaw.
Yep.
And you're saying, don't check 6 off.
Right.
Right?
Right, yeah.
And maybe I can take that out. And then now we're just going down to the -3. Oh.
Yep.
Not a -1, -3. And here I would say, see attached. Conditions. And do I want to say that this work, is that enough?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then signatures. If everybody gives me permission to sign for them.
Yes.
Okay, so let me now go to, I will turn that into a PDF. Let me go to the special conditions draft. Okay. Share that. Looks like some people are trying to join. And draft DOA special conditions. All right. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is mostly all boilerplate, but I need to change it given what we just said. Proposes to repave a driveway, add stormwater features to the driveway, and move a parking area within the right of way. Permitting shall conform to these drawings. The proposed work will occur within the 100-foot buffer of Atkins Reservoir. So we're saying it does not qualify as a minor exempt activity, because we just determined that. And then we want to say the 100-foot buffer zone is a protected resource area. Oh, that isn't right. Under the bylaw, this is issued, this is no longer right because we're not just issuing it under the bylaw. And we find that there's no negative effect, that there's no negative impact. And then special conditions. This is all boilerplate. Site visits, provide a copy of the conditions to any contractors. Anybody doing the work is responsible for these conditions. Erosion controls will be installed as described. Here I've added a 2-inch layer of wood chips will be added to all areas of soil disturbance to provide stabilization and erosion control. No hay shall be used for erosion controls. Once erosion controls are in place, the applicant will submit photographs in lieu of a pre-construction site visit. Erosion controls define the limit of work, no major changes pre-existing grade. I mean, they are making some changes to grade, but not major. Nor any tree removals approved. Pre-existing vegetation will be preserved as much as possible. And if there's any changes, the applicant would need to, in the plan, the applicant would need to come back to us. Construction materials will be stockpiled at least 100 feet from the bank and debris removed. Any piles of things, if there's any gravel or soil, it has to be remain tarped under a plastic tarp. And I don't know if there's any grass reseeding, actually. That wasn't, I think, mentioned, but I'm just putting in here that if they are going to do grass reseeding within the buffer zone, that they use a conservation mix type of grass seed, and then give us photographs. Any revisions to that?
No? It's
No.
good.
It's pretty standard.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
okay. Do we have a motion? Well, first of all, do I have everyone's permission to digitally sign?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, everybody, I will acknowledge that everybody is nodding.
Yes.
So somebody want to make a motion to approve the determination of applicability with special conditions?
I'll make a motion to approve the RDA special conditions for 120 Cushman Road.
I second.
Great. David,
Aye.
DeFont, I, Harrington,
I.
Khan,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jesse and Nan.
Thank you, everyone, for the time and care you've put into the process.
We're so
luck with
glad
your
this
project.
worked.
Thanks so much.
Okay. So if anybody is coming for the Ames Pond hearing, I just want to let you know that we've had a time change because of a noticing issue, and we're going to have the hearing at 8:30 tonight. You're welcome to stay in the meeting if you're here for it, but I just want to remind people if anyone's showing up for it. So we can take care of some other issues, I think. Why don't I see Connie Capelli is here? Hi, Connie. So why don't we take a few minutes and discuss the certificate? Hi, welcome. Why don't we talk about the certificate of compliance for 29 January Hills Road? I sent some materials off to the commission. I did not share with you the time that Carrie and I spent in the Concom office playing pieces with giant site plan maps from the 1980s. Or the time I spent on the Franklin County Register of Deeds trying to find the subdivision plans. So this property at 29 January Hills Road, the landowner is selling the house, and there is an old order of conditions from 1995 that's attached to the deed. And they would like to get that discharged because they're closing on their house tomorrow. And this was a property that Robin and I looked at in 2020 because they did a new septic system and there was an RDA for that. And Robin and I did the site visit. It is right next door, if this helps anybody, next door to Ellen
Waldinger White.
Waldinger's home at 27 January Hills Road, where we visited last year in the fall for a certificate of compliance, also one from way back when. And if you remember, there's a wetland and an intermittent stream on Ellen's property. The intermittent stream comes over from the Capelli's property, and they have a pond next to their house that's connected to that intermittent stream. So there's a large wetland and stream. I don't even know if it's an intermittent stream. Well, it's classified as an intermittent stream, but it's got running water, I think, most of the time. So the question is, what we figured out finally was that we got the files from Old Town Hall, and I sent everybody the original notice of intent and the site plans. And so we have to decide whether we can issue the certificate of compliance without doing a site visit in the interest of expedience for the landowner, because if we require a site visit, it is going to mean that I think that they have to delay closing on their house. So there was another order of conditions that might have been attached to this property. The attorney raised it as a concern because it was an order of conditions for a subdivision plan that Douglas Cole had submitted for the Round Hills Road subdivision. And Janice, are you there? So I think you were chair of the commission when this was all going down in the 80s. Is this ringing a bell? No? You're muted, Janice.
I couldn't find my way back to the screen to unmute. I was trying to look up the location on Mass Mapper just so I understood where it was. And I was thinking, gee, I wonder if that's the old Cole subdivision. So is the wetland, is it only the pond and the stream or whatever that you said is on the property?
Yes.
Okay.
So Carrie and I looked at the subdivision plans because the reason is that with that subdivision plan, there was a road, and there was a notice of intent for road construction. And there were some perpetual conditions that the commission put in place because of some ponds, a pond and some wetlands. And so they were all referencing lot numbers, and those property parcels have been recombined over the years in so many ways that it's very hard to tell which lot numbers turned into which actual house properties. So that's why I looked at a whole bunch of revisions of the subdivision plan, trying to figure out over time, where did these parcels divide up? I think the short end of the story is this, that I don't think this has anything to do with this particular property.
Mm-hmm.
Because it looked like Tony Conklin's property, is the property that Connie Capelli and her husband own. And that wasn't part of the subdivision.
No, okay. I would say just whatever you do, that it's a certificate of compliance just for that lot, or just for that address.
Right.
not for the whole rest
Right.
of the subdivision.
No. And for the future, if we ever have any other certificates of compliance that we have to do for other parcels that were part of that subdivision, we're going to need to figure some of this out. What happened was that they had a big involved subdivision plan that didn't work out. And so they kept reorganizing the lots until they finally sold all the lots. And the other thing that's confusing is that I found 4 different names for January Hills Road. East Leverett Road, January Hills Road, Ames Pond Road, and Pratt's Corner Road. And I found 3 street numbers associated with the Capelli's property. At one time it was 4 January Hills Road, then it became 7, and then it became 29. I don't understand that. I don't understand why there were 3 numbers.
Wow.
So anyway, are we okay with, what do people want to do about the certificate of compliance for this?
So I just want to be clear, so this is for a notice of intent that was to build the house on the lot.
Yes.
Okay,
It
and
actually was to enlarge the house, I believe. And what the site plan from 95 doesn't show the pond, but county is saying the pond pre-existed their
Okay.
work.
and so what year is this order of conditions from that we're issuing the certificate of compliance for?
1995.
Okay, and I guess, I mean, if we're not going to do a site visit, I guess I would just like to maybe hear from Connie that the addition was built sort of to plan.
It was, and the engineer was Sarah Campbell, who is Franklin County. I don't know what all she has done in the past, but she has worked with Franklin County and is a certified engineer. She actually, out of the goodness of her heart, went out there yesterday to look at it, just to make sure that everything was in compliance with what we had all set up back in 95. And she sent everything to you, right, Miriam? Or I sent
She
everything
did.
to
She
you.
sent an as-built certification statement.
Yeah.
So we have that, which is
Yes.
very helpful.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
that makes it much more comfortable for me. So that's all good.
Okay. All right. I have a draft. It's 7:30. So again, I just want to remind anybody who's here for the Ames Pond a notice of intent. We're going to be doing that at 8:30 because of a scheduling change. But let me pull up the draft and you guys can review it. What did I do with it? I had it. Maybe I put it somewhere else. Hang on. All right. I have Form 8A and maybe I didn't fill it out. Okay, I did not fill out Form, I was helping them with 8A. I didn't do 8B. I can fill it out later if people are okay with that, if you want to approve it. Is that all right? And then
Yeah.
Yep, fine.
Yep.
it's a pretty simple form. I probably won't mess it up. I might mess it up, but I'll try not to. Okay. So does somebody want to, so we're, and again, what we're approving here is a complete certification of compliance, not a partial one with no continuing conditions.
Is that order of conditions just for that house?
It was just for that house.
Okay, good.
And all of the conditions in the OOC were all like construction phase
Okay.
conditions. There weren't any perpetual conditions or anything.
Okay.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion. I make a motion to issue the complete certificate of compliance for 29 January Hills Road.
Can you give the DEP number? I think it would be good
Yeah.
to have that in the record.
It is 286. Hang on, let me pull it up. It is 286-0090.
Oh, that does go back.
I do have Form 8A if you want to see it. But, and I do not have a phone number for the Capellis. So I'm just putting their email address where it says phone number.
I can give it to you right now if you want it.
Okay, let me find place. Okay. Go ahead. What is it?
413-537-2032.
Okay, I have your address in Naples, Florida.
Yes, yes.
And we will send you a copy both by email as a PDF, and we will submit it to DEP as well. And then we will send you a paper copy by certified mail, which you won't have for tomorrow, but you can, if you want, you can go to the registry tomorrow with the printed copy of what I email you.
Or can I just forward that email to the attorneys so they can go
Or you
through
can
with the
forward
closing?
it, right, you can just send, right, you don't have to go, you can have your attorney do that, yes.
Miriam, I
Yeah.
don't think they can record it without original signatures. Or is it still in that zone of COVID where you can?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have a certificate that allows us to do
Okay.
recorded digital signatures. So as long as everybody's giving me permission to sign for them, yes, I'm getting nods that everyone has a reflect in the minutes. Everyone is allowing me to do that for them. Then I think we're okay. I always attach the certificate of vote to any permits.
Okay, good.
So that gets filed. So
Thank you so much.
We do
Okay.
need to vote.
what we do need to vote, we didn't do it. Okay, so there was a motion
Yep.
in a second.
Second,
Okay, David,
aye.
Stefan, I, Con,
Aye.
Harrington,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Glad
you.
Figured all that out. It was a fun archaeology project.
And I appreciate all the work you put into that, Miriam. I know you
Great.
spent a lot of time.
All right, great. Okay, so it's 7:34. At 8 o'clock, we've got the RDA for New Boston Road. We're all going to be reviewing the enforcement order tonight later. So I don't want to start that earlier because I think the applicants would be coming. Minutes, let's approve the minutes. So Carrie has got me the minutes for June 16th, but I haven't finished looking them over or sending them out. But we never approved the minutes for March 22nd, apparently. So I resent them to everybody. Has everybody had a chance to look at them?
Yes.
Okay, any revisions?
No,
No.
Okay, all right. Do we have a motion to approve?
motion to approve the March 22nd minutes.
Okay, second.
I second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Font. Now, was everybody at that meeting? I feel like maybe there was somebody who wasn't there. No?
I was there.
I
Okay.
was there.
Yeah, just don't vote if you're, abstain if you weren't there. Okay, so David, Devon, Harrington,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
and Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, so we've got that. Penny is here still, right? Penny, do you want to talk about the top of the lake conservation area?
That would be great. Is the 7:30 hearing not?
It's
Happening?
delayed until 8:30.
Oh, okay, fabulous.
Becky, wait, Becky's got her hand raised. You're muted.
Sorry, I know that the highway part of 120 Cushman was later in the meeting, or are you accepting of the maintenance and the highway department can move ahead with that, or are you going to discuss it again?
Do we need to have a discussion or do we agree that the highway department can move forward with it? I think that was
think they
kind of
can move-
implicit.
I think
But we
they
should
can.
probably make it clear.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. I didn't want to leave and then find out you weren't comfortable.
So everybody is agreeing that,
Yes.
that no permit is required and they can go ahead with that.
Great,
Yes,
thank you so much.
no problem. Thanks, Becky. Okay, so go ahead, Penny. I
Okay,
sent the email, I think I sent the email to everybody that you had with the draft
Yes.
language.
right.
Okay.
So I sent an email today to the select board, to Becky Torres as our town administrator, and to our police chief to allow those people to have input into any rules that are posted or included in this. So, and I haven't heard back from people because I just did that today, but I would love to get the commission's feedback. Miriam, do you have the document? Can you screen share it? I have it up on my computer if
Let me see if I can make you
want
a
me to screen
co-host.
share it, although I'm not so fabulous at that.
If you guys, why don't you start talking and I'll pull it up.
Okay, so I think everyone on the commission has visited this little pocket park at this point. It's on Merrill Drive at the north end of the lake. It's like 120 feet deep and I think 60 feet wide, so it's very tiny. And just as an update, the stone work has been put in for a canoe / kayak launch. The fence is in place. Our wonderful highway department has created parking spaces there. And I know from talking with Miriam, there's some concern about people continuing to drive onto the property. The highway department is replacing some of the rocks that were removed. That was a misunderstanding. And I, in the back of my car, have one more 6-foot section of fence that will go up to connect the little gap between where the fence ends and the parking area starts. So after many years of working very hard on this, we're pretty close to being able to open it to town residents to use. But I feel it's really important to have some signage up before that happens. So here is what I am proposing. Much of this was talked about, oh gosh, a number of years ago, I think before many of you were on the commission, and it never got, well, it wasn't urgent at that time, and it never got to the point of being approved by the commission. So I'm hoping we can come to some agreement on this tonight, and it is still under review by several other groups in town, so there may be some modification, but my goal is to try and have a sign by, I don't know, sometime in August, mid to late August. So let me know what you think.
Everybody can see it, right?
Right.
Yes.
And just as a little additional information, I collected language from Fisk Pond, which is just over the line in Wendell, from Pelham Conservation Areas and from Amherst Conservation Areas. And I pulled out the things that seemed relevant to what might happen on this site.
So, and just as a little bit of background, I think we've already shared this with commissioners, but there's been concerns in the past that that location has been used by private individuals who are not using the conservation area, either by abutters who are using it for personal parking. I think at one point somebody was actually charging for parking.
Oh, yes.
And that has been an issue. And, you know, conceivably somebody could park there and then walk over to the lake, to the beach, which would then prevent anybody from parking there to launch kayaks or canoes. So,
And just so everyone knows, there are only 2 parking spaces. You know, it's not meant to be a high volume usage area.
right.
Right.
I feel like if the select board and the police will support enforcement, I would like to see some limitations on parking reserved for people who are using the conservation area. There are
I
other
completely agree. I've been involved in this a little bit, helping plant some plants, and the fact that there's only 2 parking spaces, and the fact that the adjacent landowner was like saying, "Oh, park here and pay me instead of the town." I mean, people are getting used to being able to park there and walk to the beach. So that's a big concern.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can I ask a
Yes,
question?
go ahead. With Paul, you just identify yourself.
I'm Paula Moore,
Yep.
75 Wendell Road. So, are you all are not talking about the Kestrel property at this time?
No,
You're
I'm,
talking
you
about,
you came in late. We are delaying that till 8:30.
oh, okay.
So we will be talking about that. I'm sorry. We had to postpone our hearing for an hour.
That's quite all right. So what land, so you're talking about the place where the kayaks are and the red chairs are? And the,
No, this is a small parcel of land on Merrill Drive that the town, the Conservation Commission acquired. And we put a little park in with money from the CPC. And it's a canoe and kayak launch, and it has parking for 2 people, for 2 cars. So it's on Merrill Drive, which is sort of near the state beach. It's one of the little dirt roads, private roads.
okay,
But it's within walking distance of the state beach.
I see. Okay.
It's just a little postage stamp park that the town now owns, and we've developed. It's very nice.
Oh, very nice. I can't believe I missed it.
Well, you could still, it's still there.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thanks, fine. Other comments from the commission about it?
I was wondering about addressing fishing. If we don't want people fishing there, we may want to put that on here, or if we do, add it to things that are allowed at the spot. I don't know what-
I know you mentioned that, Beth, in an email to me, and the reason I didn't act on your suggestion is the shoreline is completely vegetated except for the spot where the stone steps go down to the kayak launch. And that would be the only place one could stand to fish. It's also about 6 inches deep there.
Oh,
My guess
okay.
is, well, I was concerned that if anyone wanted to use it as a boat launch, there would be a little conflict there because there's really no space for more than 1 person to walk down there. But I also think it's an unlikely desirable spot for fishing. Not that I know that much about fishing.
I think, I don't think it's a good fishing spot.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
One of
Right
the
next, it's right next to, one of the things that's kind of cool about it is it's right next to the little island, which also belongs to the town. Maybe someday we could have a little bridge. There used to be a bridge, I think.
There was a bridge, but there were, and Becky can perhaps comment on this. The bridge was taken out in part because it was a safety hazard,
Oh,
and also because there were parties on there.
oh, okay. No, then no bridge.
No bridge, but maybe a boat launch at some point, or, a place to pull a boat in.
One of my questions about signage, and maybe this is just too much for the sign, is that, I've a lot of kayak launches. If there's any kind of hardscaping, what ends up happening is people kind of drag their boats down through the vegetation so it doesn't get scratched by the steps. And I am concerned about the native planting around the shore, the bank, getting damaged if we don't have some signage, or maybe even consider at some point a chute for kayaks and canoes so that the bank is protected. But maybe that's a discussion for another time.
Well, we could pull out all that buckthorn that's down there. That might end up creating a little chute.
There you go. That's right. That would be a project. I'm okay with this language as it is. Does everybody do we have a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve the draft of the top of the Lake Shutesbury Conservation Area rules.
I second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Stefan, Aye. Harrington,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
All right, I will send an email to the select board and the chief of police saying that we are supporting this.
Okay,
this
and
sign.
then I will wait and hear from them and certainly share any comments or changes that they recommend. And we can talk about that perhaps at
Right,
at
because
the
it
next
it
meeting
would be,
or
if you can't enforce it, if this is unenforceable.
absolutely. Becky, are you still there?
I don't
Looks like
think
she's
so.
out. That's too bad. It would have been good to run it by her.
Penny,
but-
I had one other question. Is this going to be like a metal sign or what were you envisioning for it?
I was envisioning an affordable sign.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know, do you have any suggestions? I had been thinking certainly a highly durable sign. I had thought about metal. Some of the one that is at the off of Randall Road that leads into Lake Wayla / Southbrook is a wooden sign. It's bigger than I'm envisioning. I'm envisioning a fairly small sign that's right where the parking area is.
Okay.
And I guess I'd been thinking about metal, but I hadn't looked at materials very carefully. And I certainly
Much less
welcome
expensive.
recommendations.
Metal is much less expensive because they can print it,
Yeah.
print the text onto right onto a sheet of adhered plastic or something onto the metal.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Costs like $75 for a small one.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation as to where to go?
The signs that we put up in Southbrook Conservation Area I got from, I think it was Copycat. Is that what, no, it was whatever the copy center is in Hadley. On that little side. road.
Sunrays?
No.
Okay.
Oh, I bet it's what used to be, well, it's Amherst Copy. It's the one that's moved somewhere.
Right, it's the one
Yeah.
that it's not Copycat, whatever, it was Amherst Copy.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, I'll do some research on that.
Yeah, you just basically send them a digital file, like, and then they mock it up and they can do it like in a day.
Whoa, things have changed.
And then you can get the metal posts from like Home Depot.
Okay. Okay, great. Well,
Just
this was much easier than I imagined it might be. So thank you, and I'll stay in touch as I hear from other groups in town.
Thank you.
Let's just kind of think, we've got a few more minutes before we do the Rocky Run Bridge RDA. I'm just looking through the agenda to see what might be some things we can tick off our list. An update about the bylaw regulations. So, I had this email back and forth with Patrick Garner because he and Scott Horsley were interested in doing some site visiting. They were even talking about maybe trying to do some experiments with dyes to get an idea about how to measure flow with intermittent streams. But I don't think, well, first of all, we'd have to decide where they could do that if there was an intermittent stream and get property owner consent. But there are no running streams that I'm aware of where that would be possible right now. We're kind of now in drought conditions. There was just a notice that sent out by DEP today about the conditions changing. So I think that what I would like to recommend is just that they move forward with some draft language so that we can get this process moving.
That makes sense.
And then, if we want to proof it out in the fall, perhaps if there's more water, groundwater, we could do that. So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask them whether it's reasonable to maybe have them come back in August to meet with us with some suggestions. So So there was that. Other thing I wanted to just give people a little update about was that I was out at planning board meeting on Monday night where there was discussion about a subdivision plan for the proposed land swap between Coles and the town. I don't know if people are familiar with that proposal to this parcel of land over on Great Pines Drive that would be swapped out for this parcel behind the highway department. But Coles would retain the right of way for building a forest road on the town property. And, you know, it occurred to me that there's a large wetland on that property. We've reviewed it last year and we did an RDA for the highway department paving. We went out and delineated a wetland. Robin, I know you were with me. Do you remember the highway department parking lot? And there was a wetland off to the side, and that actually is on Cole's property. The property line is very close to the edge of their parking area. And so, you know, I just raised the question of whether this has been sort of run by town council and whether there was an agreement, because basically there is no road there now, and it would mean building a road through a wetland, which I believe would be exempt if it's done for forestry, though I don't know how it works if it's on town-owned land. Does anybody know?
It can only be a temporary road if it's for forestry access for cutting plan. It can't be permanent unless they go through a notice of intent. And what's the benefit to the town in this? I'm trying to understand that.
I believe, and maybe I know that Steve Sullivan's still on, maybe Steve, you know, but I think it was originally because they wanted land for a potential well site for the highway department. Are you there, Steve? Is that right?
I am, but I'm not quite sure where you're talking about.
Oh, okay. So if you're looking at the highway department, to your right is a wooded parcel that belongs to Coles.
Oh, yes.
And then
That-
behind the highway department is another Coles property that's landlocked that they were going to swap out. Coles was going to give to the town.
The reason we're doing the swap is that unbeknownst to the highway department, we put the back 10 or 15 feet of that hoop building on Coles property.
Oh,
So that's why this thing is going, that's why this is happening.
Oh, okay.
And that they did, yes, the last time they logged that, they went through the highway department property to get onto that. Because I know that that's what Tim and Shane were talking about.
Right. So the understanding is that this swap was approved at town meeting a long time ago and is just, I think, now kind of getting to the place where it's going to happen. And so it means that Coles would go through a wetland, and they would go through a wetland on what would become town property. The agreement would be that Coles would reserve the right to have a logging road on the town property, even with the swap. So that's what the town's getting, to answer Janice's.
Does the logging road already exist? They've used it
No.
before? No.
No, it's all wooded. There's no road.
Oh.
I was trying to remember, I don't see Dawn here to help, but I didn't know if there was a limit on the amount of even temporary wetland alteration that someone can do for a cutting plan for a logging operation. Seems like this would be quite an impact.
Yeah,
isn't
that
it?
the design of that road looked pretty big on the plan.
It's a big impact. It's an
It's,
big.
it-
And
it's
there
a
was,
huge, I mean, it's a huge logging road.
and there was a stream in there, so there would be a stream crossing.
Ah. So, I mean, I don't know how that works, but hopefully the swap does not automatically have the town accept or approve putting a road in there.
I think it does. I think that's the point, is that, and
I mean,
I
that's-
guess, I just don't know how it works with a forest cutting plan that Coles would be filing, but the town is the owner. I guess people do cutting plans on other people's property at times, so.
Yeah. I just wouldn't want to see it become like, okay, we swap the land, now you have to let us put in this wide road that we'd like to keep in or something, I think there has to be, we need more information on wetland impact with forest cutting plans, I guess.
Yeah, I would think they would need an easement to do the road on our property. I mean, I don't know what's written into this agreement. Maybe with this agreement, you don't need an easement, but typically it would be an easement kind of situation.
No, I think that's the plan. Either they've already written up the easement or there's going to be an easement. That was
Okay.
part of the deal. Just Scott, you got your.
So doesn't this have to be run through Conservation Committee too, since it would be
I don't
building in a
know.
wetland? It's like,
If it's for logging, I don't know if we have any jurisdiction. Scott, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering, just listening to the conversation, if, it seems like, I'm not sure the land swap itself is within the purview of the Conservation Commission to decide on the land swap. I think it's afterward, if there are alterations, in jurisdictional wetland, that would be the question, but do we have like a proposal here where we're discussing that right now, or I guess I'm not really sure what's on the table for the Conservation Commission to be.
Well, nothing has been brought to our table. I just happened to be at a planning board meeting where there was a subdivision plan that had the mapped out road proposed. And I observed that it went through a wetland and, and we're just trying to understand, because again, it may be a situation where we have no jurisdiction because it's an exempt activity, agricultural exemption. And I'm guessing that is probably the case, that it falls under an agricultural exemption, which means that it's not in our purview. And so, it may be neither here nor there for us
do we
personally.
usually approve logging roads on town property?
The town isn't engaged in forestry practices that would be exempt. Yes, a new construction of a new road, if it was in a wetland, yeah. But if it's a logging road for forestry, then it may be exempt.
Even if it's on town property?
Maybe that's a question I could ask the DCR forester. I could pose that question for them, but people do forestry on other people's property, so as long as there's an agreement, I guess we just need to make sure that the town has an agreement that makes that, all square. So I did ask Becky about it, and I'm hoping she'll get back to me with some information. I asked whether, Donna McNichol had an opinion about it. So we'll see what comes of that. It is 8 o'clock. So, and I'm noticing we have some people who've joined the meeting, and I'm guessing this is now for the Rocky Run DCR. So I'm just going to suggest that we table this discussion until we get more information, because there is nothing before us. I just wanted the commission to be aware of the question I was asking. Hi, who is here from DCR?
I'm here, Jennifer McGinnis.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, I work out of our Wachusett office, and I will be presenting the project. I also have with me one of my colleagues, Jeff Gagner. He is our civil engineer, and he can answer some of the engineering questions.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, why don't you guys begin by, telling us a little bit about the project, as everybody's had a chance hopefully to review the RDA, but why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so we currently have an existing forest road. It's not open to the public for vehicles. It's only open for pedestrian traffic. But we use the road to access parts of the watershed for sampling, for wildlife studies, and occasionally logging operations. Currently, there is about a 12 by 14 foot wide bridge that's wood with some stringers. They're 8 by 10 stringers, and they're deteriorated. The bridge is currently covered by metal plates, and it's kind of scary to drive over, to say the least. So what we're proposing to do is just remove the existing bridge from the roadway, replace the string of the 8 by 8 inch by 10 inch stringers, and then replace it with a prefabricated 12 by 14 foot wide wooden bridge. The bridge will be mostly constructed in our shop back at Quabbin, and then brought out in sections to be placed. So there won't be any real cutting or anything like that on site, or no major cutting. The head walls are in fairly good shape. There's a couple of rocks that have come loose over the years, and our staff is pretty confident they could get some of those rocks back in place by just lifting them with an excavator that would be placed on the roadway and be put back onto the head walls, and then the bridge would sit essentially where it is now. There shouldn't be any real grading. The bridge is flush with the ground, so we don't anticipate anything like that. We don't anticipate any work within the wetland or the perennial stream or on the banks. If you've been out to Rocky Run, I don't know if you guys had a chance to get out. It's quite a walk from the gate. It is literally a rocky run. There isn't a lot of wetland associated with it. I did delineate the wetland. I was the wetland delineator, but it's pretty much just the river channel with rocks on both sides of it. So that's the project as it stands. Do you have any questions about it?
I was surprised that stream had a name, so that was fun. That was a fun thing to learn.
Yes.
And also last fall, I think it was November, I was walking out there with my husband and saw the delineations. And at the time it was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was glad to have the mystery solved.
Yeah. There's another bridge that down the road we'll be proposing that's on that same road, but it's has a different name where it switches, I don't know, switches towns or whatever. So this is part of kind of like a 3-bridge series, but if we can't get this bridge in, there's no reason to access the other 2. So we're anticipating, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are there going to be any stockpiling of materials while you're doing the construction?
No, our carpenters usually bring out the material in a box truck, and we'll bring it right to the site. It is just wood right now. We're not anticipating any gravel, any fill, anything like that. We typically use like a straw wattle, just because unless we knew we were doing wetland impact work, but we're not really going to be anywhere but on the road. So they would probably use like a straw wattle for any erosion control or any incidentals that would happen.
Any questions?
I forgot to look, is this in a natural heritage area or not?
I don't believe it was. Jeff, do you remember? It is not, right? Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't think so.
Oh, this one's
Good.
not.
This
Thanks.
one's not.
It's a cool old bridge.
It is, and it's has everyone had a chance to see it? Because I can share some pictures of it if anyone's interested.
Can we make you a host? Carrie, can you make her a host?
Yeah, she's all set.
Okay. Okay, can you see that at all? That I clicked on it? Can you see the picture or not?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the bridge, and you can see the head wall. You can see already some of the stringers are falling down. So they would just be pulling out the stringers that are there. There's like 1 or 2 stones that need to kind of be shoved back in. So once the bridge is gone, they'll be able to replace that. And then they're just literally going to build it exactly the way it is. Another picture, like I said, there's not a lot of wetland. It's mostly associated with just the bank. And this is another picture kind of facing the other way. So right now there are metal plates over the bridge so nobody falls through. And that's pretty much the project. It's a fairly simple, there shouldn't be any impact to any of the resource areas.
Okay.
When are you planning on doing the work?
Jeff, do you know when they might start it?
Yeah, I think the hope was to have it in sometime this summer into fall. I think the hope was to have it in for hunting season. And I don't know what the intention is, if there is a correlation between the hunt and this bridge, but I know the materials are being procured in hopes that they can do it this summer.
Okay. Well, I don't have any more questions. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Are we good? Everybody good?
Yeah, we were hoping for a -2, since we won't be impacting any areas.
So my thought had been that we would do a -3.
Okay.
But the conditions I think are pretty simple and straightforward and not gonna hang you up.
Okay.
That's
Sounds
okay.
great.
All right, somebody want to make a motion to close the public hearing, the public meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right,
Uh,
second.
good.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, David,
Aye.
Font, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Wilson.
aye.
Okay, so what do you guys think? -2, -3?
Well, -2 is more for if you're actually in the resource area, which I feel like they are going to be touching bank when they're, putting it down, so.
The reason I said a -2 was, it is a perennial stream, so therefore we are technically in riverfront.
Yeah.
That was the impact I was looking at, but we're on an existing road, so, but it's up to the board, obviously, what you want to, which one you want to do.
Okay. All right, what do you guys think?
I think 2 makes more sense because, yeah, you're in riverfront.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
yeah.
Um,
It doesn't really matter. It's still a,
So you're
No,
saying a
it's not negative.
-2 with no conditions?
you can condition anything really. So you could add conditions to a number 2 also. 2 just seems to the definition of what 2 is, seems to make more sense than
So
3.
2 says the work described is within an area subject to protection of the act, but will not remove or dredge. Therefore, the work does not require filing of a notice of intent.
Yeah.
Um,
Whereas 3 is more for buffer zone, anything that's in the buffer zone.
Okay. All right. So do we want to then add to 2, or do we need to have any language saying that there's special conditions attached, or do you want to issue it without special conditions?
I always like the special conditions, even if they're just the general ones, and so, you, with those forms, you can literally like handwrite underneath the number 2 thing, with see attached conditions or something like that.
Yeah, I
If
can
there's
do
no-
that. I can add that in.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. All right. So I have the draft. I just made that change to the -2, and let me pull up the draft conditions and let you guys look at them. I felt like this is a very straightforward project, so I didn't think that we needed to overthink it too much. But here we go. Can you see what I'm pulling up?
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Make it a little bigger.
Yeah, let me try to. And I can't, right now I can't see people. So if anybody's got their hand raised, please, somebody let me know, okay?
Yep.
Okay, so findings of fact. It's on Cornwall Road. I was surprised. I thought it was New Boston Road. Can somebody?
It is New Boston Road.
Oh.
It is 0 New Boston Road.
Mhm. Okay. Work is conforming to this site plan, proposed within the 100-foot buffer and the 200-foot riverfront area of a perennial stream. Buffer zone is a protected resource. And then here are the conditions. You visit site visits, copy to anyone doing the work. No hay used for erosion controls. Erosion controls define the limit of work. No major changes to grade or tree removals. Excuse me. If any changes made, you have to come back to us in the plan. Unconsolidated materials be tarped, though it sounds like that's kind of unnecessary in this case, but it doesn't hurt to have it in there. And then the final one, I thought I had, I don't know if we want to have photographs. I wasn't going to require, for this, wasn't going to require that they confirm the erosion controls. I didn't think that was necessary because it was going to be such a limited project. But we could have them submit photographs of the erosion controls. What do you think?
I don't think that's necessary, but
No, that's okay.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Do you want to
So-
put in something that maybe just says they'll give you, I don't know if it's like 48 hours notice or something for the start of work, just so you have some idea of when they're in there, or, you know, since it's not anywhere that we can easily see, it'd just be nice to know if you start getting phone
Yeah.
calls from people or something that the work has started, but it'd be good to say, yes, we
Okay,
already know.
Let's say,
Whatever sort of works.
can you guys
for
still see it? Am I still screen sharing? So,
Yes.
what would I just do? Lost it. And show.
And it could be by email or whatever, you know, works for you guys, but just some kind of notice.
Okay. We can do that.
48 hours notice by email before the commencement of work.
So there are a
Okay.
lot of people that use that area, so there'll undoubtedly be people wondering what's going on.
Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah,
it's
I think you have it right the way it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no apostrophe.
Miriam,
All
this is
right.
Penny. May I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you have a condition in there that's saying any erosion control will be removed
Ah,
after the project is complete?
Usually have that, but
I just, I drive around all over the place and I see silt fence 3 years after the fact, but not in Shutesbury usually.
good point.
after the work is completed,
Yeah, I mean, typically I would say when the site is stabilized, but it sounds like the site is not going to be altered here, so I don't think
Well-
it's necessary in this case.
okay, well, I'll have it in there in case I need it. So is that all right?
I'm happy.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve a negative determination number 2 with conditions?
I make a motion to approve a negative determination 2 with conditions for 0 New Boston Road.
I'll second.
Okay, David? David?
Aye.
DeFont, aye. Harrington
Aye.
and Khan,
Hi.
okay, and Wilson.
Hi.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a nice evening.
All right, have a nice evening.
Aye.
Take care.
Okay, I think we have about 15 minutes. We're going to move on to the enforcement order discussion. And I'm just want to welcome, I see Jake Mitchell here and Mickey Marcus is here. Is anybody else here for this? Hi, Mickey. Is there anyone else here? Just you two? So I just want to let you know, we have a public hearing at 8:30 for a notice of intent. So if we are not finished with this discussion, can you stay until, and so we could continue it if, after the public hearing? I'm not sure the public hearing is gonna be all that long. Maybe it will be, but I'm hoping it won't be long, more than a half an hour.
Sure.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so we got your proposal and the revised plan. Would you like to maybe take 5 minutes and just briefly kind of present your findings and recommendations?
Sure. I will say, the commission is correct in issuing the enforcement order. There were wetlands that were filled, inadvertently by Mr. Mitchell. He is contrite. He did follow all of your recommendations for erosion control, site stabilization, tarps, and all of that. He did, hire myself. He hired a land surveyor. So I think he was trying to keep his project in compliance. And wetland fill cases, it's hard, right? I did the best that I could to identify wetlands that were there prior. I think, everybody would probably have a slightly different approach. In the restoration plan, I overestimated the areas. I added additional land. And I'm happy to walk that area with the commission, if you think there are still questions. So let me, may I share my screen with the commission?
Yeah, Carrie, you can make Mickey go. Mickey, I will do want to share with you that, we went out for 2 site visits, and the first time was at the end of May, and the ground saturation behind the house in the central area, which you're not delineating as a wetland, was highly saturated. And when we went out at the end of June, which was in a period when the climate was being designated as abnormally dry conditions, there was still standing surface water in the central area that you have as seeded grass area. And we did observe hydric soils in that area, as well as some wetland plants.
Yeah, and that's right. So when I did the work, I did it primarily by hydric soils because the vegetation was cleared. What I'm assuming is that entire back area would be restored, where it says, well, let me just explain what I found. So I found in the woods an area that I'm calling a wetland seep. It was a discharge area. It had hydric soil, had wetland plants. I called this one Area A. It kind of ended before the well, but he did fill part of this area, and the surveyor said it was 641 square feet. This is a larger area. Similarly, a groundwater discharge. Some of the water's coming from adjacent driveway that's off the site here. Also partially filled in. I just found upland soils, but it's all mixed, right? It's all very difficult. And this is, I'll be very honest, it's hard to tell where wetlands were prior to work. So I'm looking at soils, looking at old aerial photos. I'm assuming that when the house was originally built, there was some yard in the back, but I couldn't definitively say how large that was. So what I'm proposing is restore this whole area, this whole back area, replant it, and it ends up being about 2,000 square feet. And I'm happy to walk it again with the commission.
Do you have a site plan showing the area of restoration? Because I'm not seeing here the delineation.
I just got this plan from the survey. So the surveyors went out twice. They went out once to pick up the wetlands, and then I asked them to go back out and pick up the cleared area and what the impact areas were that were cleared within those wetland areas. So I don't have a plan.
How about the area of the seeps that you have identified?
Yeah, so that's in purple. These are purple areas, and then there's also adjacent to Pratt Corner Road. There's a pretty well-defined bordering vegetated wetland here. The surveyors missed the other 2 flags, but there's a couple of flags right here. There's a culvert under the driveway. They didn't alter that area. It's well defined. The stream breaks out of the wetlands, right? So the stream starts at this point and goes down this way. So that's a BVW that wasn't altered. The other areas, I think they're isolated wetlands. They're certainly regulated by the Shutesbury Commission. They're certainly regulated by the Army Corps of Engineers. They need to be restored. I don't think they're BVWs, but even if they are, I think that the restoration plan stays the same.
So I think one of our concerns would be, well, it is important whether it's a BVW or not, because that defines whether or not DEP also has jurisdiction in addition to us. So that is kind of important. When And, I think that, the square footage of the seep areas or the wetland area would be useful information, again, for defining our jurisdiction. But, our observations during our site visits is that whole area had wetland characteristics. It's hard to imagine that there wasn't pre-existing hydric soils and wetland plants when there was, that much standing water. It hadn't rained in a number of days. Most of the wetlands on Pratt Corner Road had dried up at the end of May. And yet the ice sunk up to my ankles in the middle of the seeded grass area.
Yeah, and part of it was there's a lot of disturbed soils, and the part that I could not determine was how much land was originally cleared in the back of the house, and that was primarily because everything had been regraded and disturbed. And I went back to the aerial photos, and none of them were very clear. So I didn't feel like I could make any determination from the aerial photography that was available.
Okay.
So I will say this is a start. And again, happy to work with the commission in defining what areas you think should be restored. We can go out there, mark them together. It's exceedingly difficult to determine wetlands when soils have been moved around. And honestly, I did the best I could. I think what I have is probably close to what was existing, but we can go out there and reevaluate.
Mary, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, when we went out there on the right side, up above that seep area and on the right and also below, didn't we also see an intermittent stream or stream and water?
Yeah, when we went out in May, I don't know if you were at that site visit. I think it was just Don Wakaluk and me. There was running water, visibly running water in the area to the right that's being described as that larger seep, Mickey. I mean, it was a visually observable flow. And when we went out at the end of June and we looked at the down gradient area to the right of the house below the slope, and one of the things that's sort of hard about this site plan is that there's no contours. So if you haven't been out there, it's hard to appreciate that this is a sloping property. There's a somewhat of a plateau or a terrace for the house, and then a steep down gradient to that BVW. But we were meeting, when we looked at it, my notes indicate that Mary Grover and Beth and I and Mary David felt that there was evidence of a connection between the seep area and the downslope area. And I think that may be an area that we would like to investigate further to see if there's evidence of hydrology, because again, it is important if we establish whether it's a BVW or an isolated wetland, because that defines jurisdiction here.
Yeah, I saw that in some of your meeting notes. I didn't find that. In the area on the left side, there was clearly some standing water. There was no running water on that right area during my work. That was in June. And I spent a lot of time looking at the area between the seep and the wetlands below, but there's no channel. It's possible that water overflows, but there's no eroded bank or channel or something that I would call a connection.
Okay. Scott, you've got your hand raised, and then I see Janice.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mickey, for presenting this. I'm wondering, when you were doing your delineation there, your soils delineation, and you saw the areas that have been filled, did you have depth of fill for these sites as well?
Yeah, the depth of fill was under 12 inches because underneath it, I'm not sure if I think I provided you with at least one photo in my report of the soil corings, but they moved the soils around in the whole backyard, but it wasn't very deep. So it looked like they just moved soil, but it wasn't, they didn't bring in fill.
So for all, just to reiterate, the seep areas in purple where you see the pea stone and the seeded grass area, you've said that there's fill in those locations.
There is, yeah.
And you have the depth of fill for those locations as well, or how many sample sites did you take to determine that?
Yep. So I did soil auger cores all through that area, and in no place was the disturbed area up above it more than I don't know, 10, 12 inches. And it looked like it wasn't fill that was brought in. It looked like it was soil moved around that was on site.
So we did one core sample in the seeded grass area, right in the center, and found bleaching and some oxidation.
Yeah,
And
It would be.
that was, so, it looked like it had been hydric for a long time. And that was, it was about, I don't know, maybe 6, 8 inches down when we got to that undisturbed layer.
It would be helpful for me, Miriam or Mickey, if you had the locations where you did your sampling here, because I think what we're seeing, this is the summary of where you've delineated a filled wetland, but I'd be interested in how many sample sites you did across the seeded area, and where did you sample within the filled area as well, and what the depth of fill was at those locations.
yeah. I'm not sure if you can see this picture I put up, but this is in the report. But I only put one soil probe, but this was typical of the soil that was moved around on the top, and the hydric soils below it.
But that was, again, it's, in terms of figuring out the area for restoration, and we need to determine that in order to figure out whether the restoration plan is adequate or not. We need to have a really good idea of where we think the reasonable boundaries are for the wetland, because you're proposing 2,000 square feet, but when we were measuring the area of disturbance, when we went out, it's about 5,000 square feet. So we need to decide, there's probably some happy medium between those two, and we have to find that happy medium. Janice, you've got.
But 5,000 square feet is beyond the entire backyard. The whole backyard is not that large.
Yeah, Janice, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, thanks. So I guess I didn't see the report. I'm sorry. I saw the letter and the map, and I must have missed the report. But Mickey, can you explain what you mean when you say that you'll restore the back, included the seated area?
Yeah, of course. Let me pull up. So Miriam's right. I don't have I have an area, but I don't have a plan in place. And so the idea in the restoration was there's a number of features, and I'll get you the plan, Janice, or the commission can send that to you. But let me just see. The plan was to the trench drain will be sealed and plugged. The hydric soils would be get redistributed. There's a stockpile of hydric soils on the site that's currently under a tarp that would get re-spread. There's no additional fill or soil off-site that's needed. That there's a revegetation planting plan that's proposed, and a seeding plan that's proposed. And what I had proposed was a timing that I thought that the work could be completed by August 15th, and then some other post-construction monitoring. But I think perhaps the best thing to do would be to meet with the commission on the site. We can dig as many holes as you want together till you're satisfied with what that area should look like, and then we'll put that on paper.
Yeah.
Can I just ask,
yeah.
So with the reseeding, does that mean some of that area will still be lawn?
No.
That maybe we're now discussing whether it's wetland or not?
No, what I had suggested, because I could not tell how much lawn there was originally So I had suggested 15 feet off the house
Okay.
would remain
That
as,
was-
and everything else would be restored.
That's helpful.
Okay.
I'm mindful that we need to start our notice of intent public hearing. And I'd like to maybe carry on this conversation a little later, if that's okay with you, Mickey, if you can hang on, I appreciate that. I will just say, I had a conversation with DEP about this, and I put together a draft letter that we can look at with some feedback for you. But some of the concerns that I have are the line of rocks and boulders that were relocated and now are creating kind of de facto wall, which is potentially going to change hydrology and habitat. And I would like to see that wall dismantled because those boulders are not in a natural configuration. And I am concerned about the drain being capped but remaining in place because it is a perforated pipe with a downward slope, and it will change hydrology. Even if it's capped, it's going to be redirecting water to its lowest point. And I think that, I would like to see a restoration plan that involves removing all of that fill and the drain and restoring that area as well. And then finally, in terms of monitoring, I am concerned about such a short period from, for example, we have a drought and the planting plan doesn't achieve, let's say, an 80% revegetation. I guess I would like a longer monitoring period and perhaps site visits from the commission instead of photographs or in addition to photographs, just to make sure that it is successful and that everything's sort of firmly established before we sign off on the permit, on the order. So that would be some thoughts you can think about, and we can talk about it later if that's okay.
Okay, I will stop my conversation and let you go on to your hearings, and Jake and I will stay on.
Thank you, thank you. And I see somebody's got their hand raised, and Sharon, are you wanting to comment on this as a member of the public?
Yes, I am, but I don't know if it's the right time.
Yeah, but if you have a very brief comment, we do want to allow the public to participate, so that's fine.
Yeah, I own the farm across the street from this property, and that wetland, the intermittent stream, it goes right into our pasture, and we really depend on that water for our farm, both for our ducks and all the animals drink from it. And so I'm just concerned. I don't really understand the hydrology of it all, but that's what my concern is, just to make sure that those waterways seep properly, that it's clean, that that stream continues to exist. So that's all I want to say.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, I appreciate that. And you're welcome to come to when we follow up on this. All right, you can lower your hand. All right, let's open the public hearing for the notice of intent for Ames Pond. Welcome. And I see some folks here to present the project. I see Chris Vellante and Kristen McDonough from SWICA, so welcome. Do you want to take a few minutes and sort of walk us through it? Maybe if you want screen sharing, do you want to show a site plan and walk us through things? Maybe that larger wetlands map might be good.
Yeah, that would be great. Can I request a screen sharing from the host?
Yeah, Carrie, our land use clerk, can do that.
Okay. While she sets that up, I'll introduce myself. My name is Kristen McDonough. I am with SWCA Environmental Consultants. I am a professional wetland scientist and a certified wildlife biologist, and I'm here representing the applicant for this notice of intent, Kestrel Land Trust, and this is for the Ames Pond Conservation Area located on Wendell Road in Shutesbury. Let me just pull up the right thing here. So this is my overall figure. I can zoom in. I have breakouts of each one of these white dashed outlined areas, 1, 2, 3, 4, on another sheet. Let me just pull this thing over here. But I'll give you the overview first. This is the property and the conservation restriction of Ames Pond. the red dashed line is the conservation restriction and the solid black line is the property line. And you can probably see that those two don't exactly align perfectly in all areas, in particular this area right here. This notice of intent includes the upgrading of existing boardwalk, which traverses through a natural bog, this right here, installation of new boardwalk where a portion of existing trail and carriage road has become flooded due to beaver activity. That's right here. Upgrading and maintaining existing puncheon over a portion of an existing trail which traverses through a forested wetland, and that's this white portion right here. Installing new puncheon through a portion of existing trail which traverses through a frequently flooded wet meadow, which is right here. It's hard to see on this, it's actually right here, sorry. And installing an accessible crushed stone path along buffer zone to the wet meadow, which is right here.
Kristen, just for the public and because I didn't know it either until you explained it, would you want to tell people the difference between a boardwalk and a puncheon?
Sure, I actually have a website pulled up from the vendor that I can talk about that in more detail.
Okay.
I can get to that now, actually. So let me just close this guy out. So this is a typical boardwalk. This is not Ames Pond. This is an example from the vendor of a different pond, and this vendor is Great Northern Docks. So this is a boardwalk that we're sort of modeling our proposal after, with benched areas and handicap accessibility width and turnaround areas through another bog. Obviously, Ames Pond isn't this big, so this isn't the exact one. Puncheon is a little different. Let me pull up a picture of a puncheon. I closed it out, of course. All right, well, that's going to take me a second to pull up. But puncheon is basically, it's a crossbar sill on runner bars. It's basically wooden 2x4s that you place over a wetland, and it's not a raised constructed boardwalk typical to these types of examples. We're proposing wood. Let me just get that other one queued up again. So something kind of similar to this, with little bumpers on the side. This is the boardwalk. This would be constructed of wood. And hang on, let me pull up my puncheon photos. Here we go. So this is an example of a puncheon. It's basically these kind of 2x4 runners with a crossbar, which we call a sill. And then there's a platform on top. And so the idea is this just kind of spans the wet portions where an existing trail crosses wet portions. And what happens is when you have a trail that goes through a wetland, when it's seasonably wet, trail users tend to go around it, which creates more soil compaction, and it leads to trail braiding, which can widen the wetland conditions, expand the wetland boundary, trample vegetation, lead to erosion, compact soil, and just make the trail location generally a little bit more confusing for the trail users. If you put a puncheon down, especially handicap accessible puncheon, it encourages trail users to stay on the trail, and it reduces the soil compaction, reduces the vegetation trampling, and it reduces the trail braiding. So hopefully that is a little bit more clear. I can come back to that in a second after I just kind of give an overview of the different areas where we're proposing each of these activities. Where this trail, this blue trail right here, is proposing to be decommissioned. It's proposing to be closed in perpetuity and allowed to naturally revegetate, to allow some of the sensitive resource areas, including some wetlands and the bank, to naturally revegetate. And we're also proposing it parking area right here. There's an existing unofficial parking area, and we're proposing to expand that and make that official. And that will remain unpaved. And I'll talk about each one of these in more detail in just a second. The purpose of this work is to upgrade and to reduce the impacts of the existing trails within jurisdictional resource areas while improving accessibility, which is one of the priorities identified by the town, including the town's Community Preservation Committee. Trail maintenance may occur within portions of bordering vegetated wetland, riverfront area, and 100-foot buffer zone to areas jurisdictional to the Wetlands Protection Act and the Shutesbury Wetlands Protection Bylaw. However, this activity does not propose to alter resource areas. No resource area will be lost, and none of this work will adversely affect the interests protected under the Wetlands Protection Act. All the trail maintenance activity that's proposed as part of this project constitutes maintenance of existing trails and structures. And then I'll just zoom in here. So this is the first area here. So under existing conditions, there's an unofficial parking lot that extends slightly into the right of way, the public right of way. And there's an existing trail that comes off this lot and it cuts right through this bordering vegetated wetland, which we flagged as the A wetland. And you can even see through this semi-transparent polygon, which is the wetland outline here, kind of where like this soil compaction is happening. So we are estimating that under existing conditions, there are 2,800 square feet of impacts to the bordering vegetated wetland or BVW associated with the existing trail entrance. And what we're proposing is just moving that portion of the trail right here, which connects to this connector trail down here and to this other connector trail over here. Just this section right here, we're just proposing to pull it out of the wetland and put it in the buffer zone. And this section will comprise of crushed stone meeting accessibility standards. And this section will be punch-in meeting accessibility standards. And this red outline box right here, which is actually also in buffer zone, is proposed to be a viewing platform, also meeting accessibility standards and offering a vista of the pond that will be comprised of just more punch-in 10-foot by 12-foot lengths. So the total viewing platform will be 10 feet long by 24 feet wide, or 24 feet long by 10 feet wide, I guess.
We had it when we went out on the site visit. We talked about this with you, and I'm wondering, have you considered the option of moving the trail around the other side of the wetland on the kind of upslope side?
We did. We considered that a lot. So if you can see this, so we're proposing upgrades to this section of the trail and abandoning this piece right here. But this section right here is existing, and there's no proposed work on that existing length of trail. This length of trail connects to this trail. There's another trail that connects up here to this other trail. There's a steep pitch right here through the forested area that cannot meet accessibility standards. So that option was abandoned. And there's also this connector down here, which is off of Kestrel Land Trust's property. So in order to maintain this loop here, we still need to connect here. And we thought about abandoning this altogether, but the reality is this is where the parking lot is and people have been using this. They're going to keep using this. So in order to deter use from walking in the wetland and creating that soil compaction and that trail grading, having a clearly marked single path will encourage people to stay on the trail, and it's outside the wetland. So it's in the buffer zone. So we think that this will actually reduce the impacts, and we quantified that under the existing conditions, there's 2,800 square feet of impacts, and we're reducing that down to 150 square feet of impacts in BVW. So this will, I mean, it's in buffer zone, but we're reducing the impact significantly within the resource area.
Kristen, this is Scott. Good to see you again.
You too.
Maybe following up on what Miriam was saying, I think what we were talking about is, a trail coming from the parking lot, staying clear of the wetland altogether and going by the A12, A10, by the A9, A7, A6, A5, that way along the north side of the wetland, and then, attaching to the overlook there, just to to eliminate the impact of the, the crossing the wetland, either, it looks like now what's being proposed is a punch-in versus the crushed stone. But did you have any thoughts on that? Was that considered, or?
Yeah, we did talk about that. So I think what you're talking about, Scott, is right here following this existing trail and then coming down here. And there is a trail, but it's too steep to meet accessibility standards and too narrow. To be widened would require significant tree removal. Whereas this is an existing trail and all we're proposing is just moving it outside of the wetland where it's currently going through the wetland. This portion right here, there's no proposal to do anything to it. That's going to stay. And that also goes through the wetland just a little bit between kind of this little triangle right here.
I think what I was saying wasn't actually that, Kristen. It was not going up on the existing trail and, and down the slope.
Oh, you mean
around.
creating a new trail
It was
through the
by
woods? Yeah.
relocating, right now you have, it looked like two different options to get there, and it looked like the south route was more wet and had potentially more wetland impact. So was there another way to accomplish the same thing with minimizing the impact to the wetland there?
I think the short answer to that is really no, because for two reasons. One, this is an existing trail that people will continue to use, whether or not we upgrade it and try to consolidate to a single path. And two, I think creating a new trail that's through forest is beyond the scope of this grant, and it's not part of this project.
Okay. I had a couple questions. First of all, simple question. What is the scale on the map scale?
So this is an 11 by 17 that we provided to the commission, and it is 1 inch to 1,000 feet.
Okay, thank you. I need that for the order of conditions. And then is there any seeding, grass seeding that's going to be involved anywhere?
There is no revegetation proposed in terms of restoration plantings. As far as this trail is concerned, this trail right here, which it actually touches on the C wetland and the B wetland. I think the original mapping was a little bit off because when you're on, or the erosion has created a little bit more bank migration further to the north. This trail anyways, it intersects with sensitive resource areas. This trail is proposed to be closed in perpetuity and allowed to naturally revegetate. And there are no invasive species along that trail. It's really well vegetated with leatherleaf and pitcher plants and maleberry and kalmia, and I think it's going to revegetate just fine on its own. This area in here, this wet meadow, is actually proposed to be mown on an annual basis as part of a long-term operation and maintenance plan. And yeah, and that is for a few reasons. That is for both an ecological reason. We'd like to keep that as an early successional meadow. And there are several specialized plants growing in there that are adapted to boggy wet meadow habitats, including pitcher plants, sundew, swamp candles, and snakemouth orchid, wild cranberry, not to mention the other native sedges and rushes and ferns. And without anthropogenic manipulation, that will succeed into a scrub shrub swamp and eventually a forested wetland. There is a little high bush blueberry island in the middle, which I think Kestrel's happy to leave. I think that the second reason this is proposed to be mown in November on an annual basis is to continue the experience that this conservation area has provided the trail users for years. I mean, this has been mown, this was mown, according to what I've been told since the 1930s until Julian's death in 2019, maybe a year before that as he was passing. And then since then, I think maybe maintenance kind of fell to the wayside as legal issues were working their way through the legal system. But for two reasons. It's one, it was part of the original conservation restriction and part of the grantor's wishes. And two, for ecological purposes, to keep it in early successional wet meadow habitat for some of the plants that are specialized to live there already.
Okay. Are there other, I'd like to see if commissioners have any more questions. I see Janice has her hand raised, and then maybe see if anyone from the public has any questions, but Janice, go ahead. And then Scott. Janice, why don't you go first?
Okay, I don't want to go before the commissioners if commissioners have questions.
Scott, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just a point of clarification on Kristen on the overlook there. I think when we had met, you had talked about a raised platform on like sonotubes that would be placed there. And at the time that you had that delineated as upland. And I'm wondering here, what you said this would just be another, like several puncheons put together, but I was just wondering if you could elaborate on, is that in wetland? Which it looked like it might be in wetland when we were there visiting, and what would be the construction plan on that? I'm not sure I followed the puncheons put together.
Sure, yeah, I understand that. That's a little hard to grasp. Maybe, I don't know if this is any more helpful. So this example of a puncheon is, I think, 3 feet wide, but the lumber actually does come in 10-foot sections. So it would be easy to put, or maybe it's 10 feet length by 12 feet wide sections. So I think what the proposal was is to just include an extension of the puncheon. And it would just be 2 of the pre-constructed lumber, kind of 12-foot long, 10-foot wide, sorry, I keep getting that backwards, sections of puncheon with bumpers around the edges, just kind of like these bumpers. And so maybe I can zoom in a little bit more. So you'd be walking along the puncheon, and then you get to this kind of platform, and it would just be this like square, more puncheon. And then the 3-foot wide puncheon would extend on the other end, and then no maintenance proposed for the rest of the way. And this is actually, this was an upland island cutout. So A4 is here, the wetland flag A4, right at the beaver dam right here on the bank. And then it goes up, and then it goes up, and then it goes back down. So this was actually, we squeezed this in right in an area where we happened to find an upland cutout and right on the property line. And then the art installation is like over here. And when we were in the field, I did have a geode with me with a tablet, but we didn't have great satellite reception for some reason. And also the flags were removed. So I think I was further over here when I was trying to identify where that was in the field. And I was a little bit off. It's actually closer to where that beaver dam is over here, right? This is where the footbridge is, right here where that trail connects. If that's ringing any bells for the commissioners who are familiar with this trail, there's like a stone, kind of Goshen stone topped footbridge right over the stream here. And that little cutout is right there, basically. If that, I can pull up photos too, if that's helpful from the delineation.
No, I guess I was just, maybe one last question. How close to the wetland bank, when that's done, that 10 by 20 or whatever that overlook is that going to be right on the bank, or is it set back a bit?
It is set back, and that is because Kestrel doesn't own the bank. That is the abutter's property. So this black line right here is actually the property line. So this whole part of the bank over here is off property. And so this has to be placed on the Kestrel Land Trust property.
Thank you.
Janice, and then I have a question. So go ahead, Janice.
Okay, so I have 3 things actually. First of all, the trail that you're going to go around the wet meadow in the front, you say it's in the buffer zone, but it's probably what, a foot from the wetland, something? I mean, if you are right on the wetland edge or something like that?
Yeah, it's pretty close because we didn't want to push it too far into the forested area. We really wanted to make sure that this is a trail that people are going to stick to and not keep cutting through the wetland. So it is really close to the wetland boundary, which is why much of this is punch-in, and only this 50 linear foot section right here and right here is within BVW. We didn't count this punch-in right here as technically impact because it's in buffer zone, but this is all punch-in, again, just to avoid further impact to the very close adjacent resource area.
Okay, so my second question then, this is the thing that worries me the most, is I really love that wet meadow boggy area. And I see what you mean about requiring some mowing to keep it from turning into shrubland, but I also consider it a very sort of sensitive soil structure. And I can't imagine mowing vehicles coming in there. And I'm hoping that the commission may consider allowing the cutting of the taller shrubs or whatever, but to do it by hand tools and not to come in with vehicles. I think it'll crush the soil structure as well as the plants in there. So that's
Is that an option that's feasible, Kristen?
I think that's a better question for Kestrel, because this has been managed for decades and it has been mown for decades and the plants still are there. But I mean, I don't know what the applicant would be amenable to and what has already been in their practice.
And you don't know what size mower he used before or any of that. And it may have been decades, but it's been a while now since that's been done. And I think things can change, and that there should be consideration of being careful in that environmentally sensitive area. And then the third thing I had was, I know it wasn't your fault that the wetland flags were removed, but I think that they should be replaced, and maybe with a timing to allow for the Concom to be able to go out and to look at the wetland flags. That's usually a part of a notice of intent review, and it's sort of hard to do when the flags are missing.
I understand that comment, and that was very disappointing and sort of surprising. I would request that the commission consider not doing that, just considering the scope of this project is existing trail maintenance. And the applicant is a nonprofit agency. We are not a nonprofit company, and we would have to require a change order for that, which would be an expense for Kestrel Land Trust.
But how do we know where the wetland edge that you said you're skirting is? And since you're going to be working very close to wetlands, in some cases when you're not actually in them, I think that's still important to be able to have some sense of potential impact.
We would love to invite the commission to visit the site prior to construction to review the location of the trails and the mowing if requested.
All right, we can talk about that. One of the questions I have is where, for the construction phase activities, where are you proposing stockpiling materials? How will you be disposing of the materials that will be removed? Is there going to be a dumpster? Where is that going to be, et cetera?
So from what I've been told is the boardwalk, and I apologize, this scale is not great, but so for example, for this boardwalk construction, it's almost kind of better to look at on this overview figure. For this boardwalk construction, this will be done piece by piece, with individual pieces being hauled out piece by piece.
Okay.
So a lot of this is just handwork. And I can't guarantee the exact construction methodology because Kestrel Land Trust is going to put out to bid the construction of this portion of the work at a later date, and that will be a competitive bid through a request for proposals, and it hasn't been awarded to a contractor. However, the gist of the scope is proposed in this NOI, and the company that we've agreed to work with is the Northern Great Docks. I think I got that right. Great Northern Docks Company. And so these are the specs that we're working with. We just don't know exactly who the contractor will be, but the plan is right now, and what we're proposing, and you can special condition this if you'd like, to have each piece constructed a little bit at a time, with the old boardwalk pulled out a little bit at a time. And the punch-in, again, same thing. We're buying the lumber, we're installing that by hand, and it's one piece at a time.
It's hard to condition it if we don't know like what size pieces to condition, I feel like I don't have enough of the construction phase sequencing to be able to do that very effectively. But I guess I am concerned that if this goes out to bid, if they want to haul in a pile of materials and have a staging area, that it not be in a sensitive area.
Maybe like the commission could ask for a copy of the construction sequencing detail before construction, or I don't know how that would work, but something along those lines from the contractor. The contractor provide the commission a construction outline, or I don't know how that would work, but something like that.
We can ask for it, but then we wouldn't necessarily have the room to condition anything. If, what do you guys think? Do you have anyone else, Janice or?
When I agree that it's important for us, I think, to know how they're going to be constructed. So the sequence, but also the method and the equipment that they're going to use in that bog area. And so it is a little tricky to not have that information right now. So to write a condition, like you said, that would get us the information, but then we can't condition it, or we can't change it at that point. So it's, I don't know, Kristen, is there any information that you can get even from that company that you are working with, who are going to provide the decking, of how it's constructed?
Well, like I said, from what I've been told, it's installed and removed in sections. And then I have another photo in here. This is again just from the website, but there's quite a lot of photos in this slideshow, but there's a good one that shows the actual installation of the sections that I liked. So it's like this. So, you put one section in and you pull one section out. And then here's kind of a close-up on the footings that are installed. It's these kind of hollow PVC pipes that you sort of mallet in. And then you just sort of hand crank each little piece in, and then it creates a form, and then you just put the deck on top.
So we could condition this saying that, and this, I get, maybe this would accomplish this, to say that there can be no stockpiling in the resource areas. And we could even say in the buffer zone, which means that essentially they would not be able to stockpile anywhere. They'd have to bring things in one at a time, because the whole thing is buffer zone if it's not resource areas. So,
yeah, no refueling within.
Yeah, no refueling.
I don't know what kind of power equipment they would have if they needed a chainsaw for any portion of it or whatever.
It's all being done by hand, Kristen.
This part is, I'm trying to think of anything else that may be done as part of the ongoing operation and maintenance that we put in the NOI. So other operation and maintenance might include, general vegetation clearing within, the existing trails, like a tree that falls down and needs to be cut. That might involve a chainsaw. So no refueling of anything within buffer zone or something like that.
I'm thinking about no wheeled or tracked equipment going through there. That's a question. If it's going to require the use of wheeled or tracked equipment to transport things out or to do the construction itself, or if it's going to be all people power, walking it out and installing it and pounding it in.
It's all people power, but not the wet meadow. So that's still proposed to be mown, which would probably involve wheeled machinery.
But for the boardwalk.
For the bog, yeah. So that's the plan for the bog, from what I've been told. I'm not an expert on bog building, boardwalk building, but that's what I've been told. That it's piece by piece, hand removed and hand installed. And then the punch in is the same thing.
The meadow is the A wetland.
Yeah, and so if I go to this breakout sheet, the first sheet is this piece right here.
So, we could put in a condition saying no refueling of power equipment and no wheeled or tracked equipment except for the permitted annual. Let's say if we do permit annual mowing of that one meadow, But, we could say that, there couldn't be any stockpiling or staging. So that would mean they would have to carry it all in.
I will say though that the new parking area, which we haven't even talked about, is in the 100-foot buffer zone.
Right.
So, I mean, if they cleared that and wanted to use that as a staging area, and it's, if they're taking this unofficial parking area, which extends into the public right away, and making an official gravel parking area, currently all within the conservation restriction in Kestrel's boundary.
Yeah.
They clear that, they get rid of all this invasive species that's all around there, and it's nice, clear, level pad. That would seem like a great place to stockpile. So if you conditioned it to say no buffer zone, that could be a tricky spot.
Right. Well, we could say no buffer zone except that they can use the parking area. So we could make that clear in the condition. Okay. Do we have any comments or questions from members of the public? You wanna, I see Marty Wells. Hi, Marty. Wanna just identify yourself and your address?
Marty Wells, 12 Ameshaven Road. I have been in a butter to this property for more than 40 years and worked closely with Julian Janowitz in the transfer that led to the gift to Castro of this property, as well as for more than 4 decades working with him throughout the year on trail building maintenance, including the boardwalk through the wetlands and the not in the current view, there's all the way over to the right-hand side, sort of midway down, there's a nearly failed little bridge crossing.
Oh, down here? Oh,
Yeah, down there.
okay, yeah, let me pull that up for you. So I think that's here. So this is Punchin right now, and it has collapsed. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
is that one of
essentially
the things that's just
site-built
looking
puncheons
upgraded?
that has collapsed. And but just to the left of that, there's what you called a existing wagon or road, I think is how you referred to it.
That's right here. Yep.
Yeah, which is not a wagon road. It's constructed in the late 50s as part of national defense stuff. It was a buried cable from Westover Air Force Base to a remote tower in Wendell. And more recently, beavers have constructed a dam atop it, which is mostly tumbled off of it and blocked the culvert. But it's going to be a challenge to make a crossing of that to restore that pathway. And I don't think the Punchin is an impractical, but isn't also the best solution. The boardwalk that a little farther up in the picture where it goes into the wetlands there, that's the one area that I'm most concerned about the existing materials that are there and the removal of them. Other than that area, much of the materials is untreated native rough sawn lumber, which is just basically returning into the soils. But there are some pallets that were set into this area now where your pointer is.
Yeah, this photo is
think
taken right where you're talking from here, facing that way.
Yeah, there's some submerged pallets in that
Yep.
area that should be removed. And then there are a couple of areas where there are some plastic decking type 1x6 material that of course will be part of reincorporating or removing, because there's no reason to throw it away if it's going to last for another 100 years. But obviously, if you're buying a pre-built system, it's going to come with all the materials. Which brings me back around to why Kestrel has not spoken to the abutters since they became the property holders. I met with them for several years as we went through this process. And then I understand that it was complicated with legal issues at the very end, but and possibly the personnel I worked with are gone, but ever since we sort of resolved the circumstances of the gift, they just fell out of contact. But if we go back to what you call the wet meadow, it has not been mowed with equipment over those years. It was essentially hand mowed except for periods when it was frozen.
Hand
And
mowed
going
with
in there
what?
in November would be disastrous.
Marty, was
with
hand
any
mowed
kind of
with
wheel.
what? Marty, this is Miriam. It was hand mowed
Yeah,
with what?
brush cutters and hand saws. We basically went in there and took out saplings.
Oh,
It is a terrific meadow of wild cranberry that our family has, gone in there every November for many a year and harvested cranberries. And we're not the only people that do that. And if you went in November and mowed it with, I presume, wheeled equipment, it's going to be soaking wet. The equipment's going to be bogged down, and you're going to tear it up, and you're going to chop off roots and whatnot, basically destroy the vegetation. So if it is to be mowed, it has to be done after ground is frozen. Julian never took his small Kubota tractor with a brush hog in there until the ground was frozen. But mostly we went and hand cut all the saplings and stuff.
yeah. Well, that's
Typically.
really helpful information, Marty.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the fact that they're abandoning the trail in the area, this blue line along the shoreline there where the pitcher plants are. That's a terrific proposal. But the area to the north of this wet meadow, it's kind of shaded. And there was some talk about why doesn't the trail go up and sort of surround the wet meadow and go around it. And Kristen spoke to the steepness. Not only steep, it's steep over some considerable ledge. And what she talked about where the spillway from that lower pond into the stream running into Wyola is not Goshen stone. It is all native stone that Julian split out of that ledge that is that shaded portion at the north end of that meadow.
I see. Okay, so we have, it looks like we have some unresolved questions, and it's getting late and I'd like to kind of come to some decision. So,
I think you got one more hand.
oh, who's got their hand raised?
I do.
Who's that?
More.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Just
Quickly,
give your
I know
address.
I know that it's getting late. I also am a butter, and I've walked that land for 25 years. I love it, and I'm really excited about that it's going to be restored and by what Kestrel is doing. I have a little bit of concern about expanding the parking area, just because more people, more footprints. Although I know that it's all there for people to enjoy. The parking area as it exists is very close to the beginning of a one-lane bridge that connects, that goes on to Wendell Road towards the steep part of Wendell Road. And more traffic there I could see that it could be a problem, possibly. So I just wanted to, express that concern. I don't know, like 8 cars or 12 cars, seems like it would be a lot in that spot to me. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do we feel like we have enough information to close the public hearing and maybe try to hammer out conditions, or do we want to suggest continuing this public hearing to get more information? I think that's kind of the question we need to decide right now.
I just have one question.
Go ahead, Robin.
A friend took me on a hike there on Monday, and the parking was for 3 cars. How many cars is the future parking proposing?
So this proposal proposes parking for 8. But I think under existing conditions, that many cars will squeeze on there anyway. Except this is kind of an unofficial parking lot. I think Julian just sort of hung a sign up and said, "Here, park here." And the existing parking lot actually extends a little bit into the public right of way. So the parking area will just be pushed further over onto the property. I don't really think it's going to invite more visitors. I think it's just going to better manage the existing visitors.
Okay, because when I was there on Monday, there was no way I felt 8 cars would fit there. I was meeting one friend and we had 2 cars, and 3, maybe 4 if we were really close would have fit.
I think that's why all the abutters have signs that say no parking, because there's a lot of overflow and people park on the street and block driveways or park in people's driveways. And I'm just guessing. I don't live on that road, but I did see an awful lot of no parking signs on a dirt road, which seemed weird to me.
Right. Well, I'd never been there before, and it was my first experience, and we were the only 2 people, so we were lucky.
I drive by there all the time. I've never seen more than 2 or 3 cars there. And I've never seen anybody parking where they're not supposed to. So.
Right. I think we should, I don't know that, we can condition that part of it. I don't know that that's kind of in our jurisdiction to decide what the size of the parking area would be. I think that's a conversation that probably needs to happen in a different setting. Somebody else has their hand raised.
Marty Wells again.
Yep.
So I, in fact, created that, if you want to call it that, the parking area. At the time that the negotiations between Janowitz and Castro were taking place, Castro was having people come out, and Julian was wanting to discourage coming onto the private driveway. Mm-hmm. And so I went over basically with my pickup and a snow plow and just roughed out the space that I could, pushing back vegetation. And I believe that within the property, there's definitely adequate space for 8 cars, and it will definitely help reduce the interference on the road, because occasionally a car has parked into the right of way.
Could we stop the screen sharing so I can see if people have their hands raised? I'm having a hard time sort of seeing who's got their hands raised. Great.
There was intended to be a second parking area off of the driveway to, I think it's 681 Wendell Road, which goes into the lower side of that pond property. There's room for another parking area.
So
if they restrict the parking, and there is room for another parking area, but it does mean more traffic along a greater section of Wendell Road, including that 1-lane bridge.
All right. Can we move on? I see
Yes.
Scott's got it. I really want to start wrapping this up because we have other business. So please, let's really focus on what we need in order to issue an order of conditions at this point, or whether we need to continue the public hearing. So Scott, and then Janice, and then I see someone in Bria who has her hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Miriam. I think for myself, building on some of the comments that were raised before, I think it's my main area of concern is from that parking lot that Marty talked about that had been, fairly recently punched in, that the area where I think they're looking to improve the trail with crushed stone right along the edge of the wetland, and then turning it into a punch in, and without seeing the wetland delineation there and where the crushed stone is going to be placed. It's not clear to me why part of it would be a punch in to avoid the wetland impact, and part of it would be crushed stone when both of them are more or less right along or within the wetland. So I think that's the one area that I would like to better resolve before we move forward with conditioning this.
Okay. And so that sounds like you would be voting for continuing this public hearing if the applicant agrees. Janice?
I guess I would, based especially on what Marty just said, to sort of collaborate. I feel very strongly about not machine mowing that meadow. And I also feel like, if we're going to make decisions like that, you guys are going to make decisions like that, that we should take another trip out there. Again, you don't have the wetlands flagged to identify for sure exactly where that crushed areas, stone area and the punch-ins are going to be in relation to the wetland edge, and make sure that you agree with the wetland edge that's being suggested.
Marty, quick question, and I just want to move on to Rhea. If we were to condition this, that there was no mowing until the ground was frozen in November or later, would that be sufficient in your opinion?
On the mowing thing, but I also second Scott's concern about why they're switching from gravel to pinch in
Right.
what clearly is an undefined at this stage wetland area.
Yes, no, I understand. Okay, and Rhea?
Okay, hello, my name's Rhea Windcolor. I live directly across the street from the property. I've been there for about 30 years. Marty, I haven't seen you since we pulled you out with the tractor, Julian, when you went up on the bridge there. I'm out there pretty much every day. I see all the traffic over there. I love what's going on. That's awesome. If Kestrel wants to unload because the town will allow you to have a staging area, you could totally stage on our property across the street. And as far as mowing, Julian did it. He had his tractors going through there. I see it's there because of what he did. And he made it beautiful for all of us to be talking about it in this kind of science way. But he would go and mow that field where the big A is, where the big moon is, and did a fine job. It didn't ruin anything. It totally worked. I think you're kind of nitpicking here, and it's gonna work. You're not gonna lose anything, and we're all the better for it. So that's my offer. If Kestrel or the consultants want to stage on our property directly across from the place, that's great. The only request I have is there's two nice little apple trees there next to the parking area. I was taking down some trees with Julian's permission right before Kestrel got it. And I was pruning the apple trees. I'd love to keep those trees going. More than happy to come over my chainsaw and help. So that's it, and good luck.
All right. So it sounds to me, Mary and Robin, how do you feel about continuing? And if so, what would we be asking the applicant for a next hearing? We would like to see the wetland flagging replaced so that we could do another site visit. Is that one thing, one of the asks? And Beth too, I guess.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Beth.
a little more information, at least for me, on the construction of the actual bridging that's going to go through the bog area. That's all. I'm just a little curious on that. And they're going to be pulling out the old, obviously, through that area. And how are they going to get all of that out of there? Are they really going to carry it by hand, or are they going to have some kind of a vehicle go back there to help them pull all of the old bridging out? Those kind of questions, and maybe they know these questions, those answers already, but it sounded like Kristen wasn't quite sure. So if they could get some more information, that would be
I
great.
think also it's, knowing where, if we condition that there's going to be stockpiling only in that parking area, we would probably also want to make sure that there were erosion controls around any stockpiled materials, things like that. So just be aware of that. Are you willing to continue to the next meeting?
I am, and I would also just like to add, if there's any stockpiling or vehicle use outside of buffer zone and there's erosion controls in place, I don't see how that would be any issue for the commission. I mean, I thought we were just talking about the buffer zone and the resource areas. So
Yeah, but it's all buffer zone, isn't it? I mean,
no, I think that if you look at the figure for the bog, you can go, there's a trail junction further up to the north that could, I don't know, like I said, I don't know what they're planning on doing specifically, but they could set up a staging area that's
right
150 feet from the bog entrance. And
So
it's
it'd
like,
be nice to know, because then we can condition things, because we can condition that they can only use the staging area of the parking area. Or we can say, because we don't have these details, we can't write effective conditions.
yeah, so I'll find out if there's anything that needs to be within the commission's jurisdiction identified as a staging area, and then we'll get more
That would be really helpful. And do we
information
want to
from you,
ask,
Beth.
do we want them to reflag so we can do another site visit?
That would require, I think, that would require a financial burden on the applicant that, that isn't a question for me to answer. We would have to write a change order and spend additional time and effort for this nonprofit agency to do maintenance on existing trails. I feel like that's a little unfair personally, but.
I think where I'm most interested, Kristen, is in the area right there along the wet meadow where we're looking to improve the trail for where it's both puncheon and crushed stone, in particular the crushed stone area. How far is the crushed stone? Is it within the wetland? Is it next to the wetland or not? So I'm not interested in reflagging the entire property. From my standpoint, it's
Just that spot
right there. That's why I was suggesting maybe going around rather than improving this section of trail. There might be another way to relocate it where there are less wetland impacts. But if we want to go right along the very edge of the wetland, then I think having it delineated so we can see what the impacts would be on that wet meadow habitat, that would be what I would look for.
Let me just pose a question. Is the crushed stone that the commission doesn't like? If that whole section was puncheon, would that be something the commission is more amenable to? And I don't even know if the applicant is. I'm just curious.
Doesn't sound like there's an issue with the crushed stone. It's more the location. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, for me, I do think the puncheon is going to have less impact overall on the wet metal, perhaps than putting poly crushed stone there. And so if that was part of what the proposal was puncheon, I won't speak for the other commissioners, but my concern is more over the crushed stone part going right along the edge of the wetland habitat than the puncheon.
Do we have copies of the screenshots that she was showing?
Yeah, they're all in the notice of intent.
They're in there. Did they print out any hard copies for us? Because it's.
There's 2 hard copies. I have one and there's one in the office. So we don't have, but you can, that's what
I
it
was
is.
gonna say, if they could make some hard copies. That's a big size. I can't do it on my printer, but.
Okay, so do we want to ask them let's make a decision. We need to ask to be clear so we can move this along and continue. So could I have a straw poll here of whether people would like to see it all puncheon as opposed to crushed stone? Scott, sounds like that's something you would lean in the direction of. How about you, Beth?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Robin?
Yep.
Okay. And Mary?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be one of our asks, Kristen, and that would be in lieu of going out and doing the delineation.
Okay, and that would go up to the 100-foot buffer zone
Yeah,
or no, it's all in 100-foot buffer zone. So that would be up to the riverfront area boundary, or that would be the entire length, including the piece that goes to the parking lot.
Yeah, I think it's the piece that goes from wherever it's within the buffer zone from the parking lot to the other existing punch-in.
Okay.
okay. All right. Would you be able to meet with us if we continue to the 28th at 7:30?
Absolutely.
Okay. Would somebody like to make I guess the question also would be whether it's realistic with the landowner to do mowing without tracked or wheeled vehicles, whether there can be hand mowing or what they require. If we could find out from Kestrel what they were proposing for mowing.
Okay, would the commission still consider a frozen condition mowing?
We would, but we
Okay.
might want to know what they're going to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we would consider a frozen.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion to continue the hearing?
I make a motion to continue the hearing to the 28th.
7:30.
7:30.
Okay, second? I'll second.
Second.
Okay, Beth seconds. Okay, David,
Aye.
Font, aye. Harrington,
Aye.
Han,
Aye.
and Wilson.
Hi.
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
I appreciate
everybody
it. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody else. All right, and Marty, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So to get back to the issues, I'd like to review with the commission the draft recommendations and findings for a letter for the enforcement order. But one of the things that I think we all agree we would like is another site visit. And I think it's in everybody's best interest that we
So
do.
what would you guys like to do out back? What would you guys like to do? Because
Let me-
obviously I made a mistake.
Mr. Mitchell,
And what?
Mr.
Oh.
Mitchell, you need to wait until you're recognized by the chair, and I will give you an opportunity, but you haven't been recognized yet. So please, I will give you an opportunity. Hang
I
on.
apologize.
Okay. Okay. I'm saying that I think it's in everybody's best interest for us to do this in a very timely way, so there are no delays in making decisions. And I want to make sure that we are accommodating as many of the commissioners to be present as want to be and are able to be. And so I understand we're juggling a lot of things. So I'd like to kind of clarify that. Now, if we're doing a weekday site visit next week, Beth, what's your availability? Are there certain days that you're available or not available? Works full time, so that's why I'm asking.
I'm available, but I'm picking up my daughter right now every day from camp, so my time is actually later than usual, so it has to be more like even 4:15. I know that's getting late for people, but like 4:15 is about as early as I can get there.
All right, and any day in particular that doesn't work for you?
No, next week I'm here.
Mickey, what about you? What's your availability?
I'm supposed to be on vacation next week.
Oh, no.
I'm back.
I'm on vacation too, actually, too.
Okay.
Can I just mention something to the commission? Because Mr. Mitchell and I had a chance to talk during the pause. I think I have some information that may be helpful.
Sure.
So Mr. Mitchell just wants to make sure the commission's satisfied with the restoration. So you had mentioned the rock wall. He's fine pulling out the rock boulders that got pulled up. He did confirm that when they did the site work, they only went about 12 inches down because they hit ledge. Additional monitoring is fine. And he did confirm that the area was previously lawn cleared 15 to 20 feet off the house. So I think what we can dig, hundreds of holes, but what I propose is just do the entire cleared area as restoration, except for that area adjacent to the house. And
15
I don't know what that square footage will be, but it'll be most of that large cleared area.
Well, I mean, that feels a lot better to me. And that, and in my mind, a 15-foot zone around a house is not unreasonable to allow a landowner to maintain his lawn. And we've done the similar things down at the lake, for example, in very tight lots where we're trying to preserve some vegetation. So I appreciate everybody's flexibility and your willingness to work with us. That's great, because we would like to come up with a resolution too. I think we would like to see the drain removed.
Yeah, that was another item. So Mr. Mitchell said he's willing to remove the drain. It just would take a machine
The door
to
open?
do that. I'm not sure it makes a difference, only because
There's somebody's talking in the background. Could somebody mute themselves if they're talking? Robin, was that you?
I was just saying hi to my cat that
Oh,
jumped
okay.
into my lap. Sorry.
I got a cat too.
So we can remove the drain. It just takes a machine to do that. I'm not sure it makes any difference, and when Sharon was talking about the hydrology, there's no change. So the drainage leaving his site still goes down grade and goes onto her land.
My concern is that it absolutely changes the hydrology in the backyard where you're replicating the wetland, because it's a sloping drain and it's perforated. And even if the end is capped, it's moving water from the back of the yard over to the side of the yard, which I understand is the applicant's desire to dry out the basement. There may be, they can come to us with a proposal and an application for that. But, in terms of replicating wetlands, I think we want to restore it to as natural conditions as possible.
Yeah, that's fine. I just think from hydrology, the drain would fill and the groundwater be back to where it used to be. But anyway, Mr. Mitchell said he's willing to remove the drain. So, and also in the letter, I said that if he chooses to do a drain pipe around his foundation, they just have to come back to you with a permit request for that.
Yeah, I think, the other question that came up for me with your report is, we would need to determine whether or not any future work is going to be permittable by an RDA or a notice of intent. And my guess is, given the wetland characteristics, that we might request a notice of intent as opposed to an RDA, even though with maybe a similar project, it might have been an RDA, but because of the proximity of the wetlands.
Yeah, understood.
We've required notices of intent for much smaller things like a geothermal well. We required a notice of intent for, and that had a much smaller impact, relatively speaking.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
No, I think at this time, just leave it alone. So whatever you guys want, I'd like to do it. So
with that
more than
in
happy.
mind,
Yeah.
with that in mind, I can revise this letter, but let's talk I also had some suggestions for more detail about the planting plan, because it's not really clear. You gave us quantities of plants, but the spacing isn't clear, and it's.
So if we did like 20 feet from the back of the house, would that be acceptable? And I'll take the drain out.
I think we would be looking probably for 15 feet.
Yeah, well.
What any other comments about the planting plan? Anybody have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, whatever you guys want to plant, I'm more than happy to plant too. So whatever you guys think, more than happy to do it.
I'm asking commissioners for some
Okay,
feedback.
well, I'm trying to give my input a little bit. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yes,
Or
no, I
no?
appreciate that.
Okay,
But
I
let me ask,
apologize. Jeez.
I'm trying to get some feedback now from the commissioners.
I,
because
I talked about 3 times is all, and I'm just trying to give my feedback on my issue. That's been, okay, so thank you very much.
Well, is there more you would like to say?
No, I said I'm more than happy to do any planning. I like, whatever you guys want to do, I would more than happy to do it. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's
Okay,
it.
great. Well, we appreciate that.
Are we gonna actually get a plan, Mickey, that, you know, a plan showing where the plants are gonna be placed, and then I'm assuming that's what we're gonna eventually get to sort of approve.
I can do that. You don't have that right now. We got the revised plan from the surveyors late, so we weren't able to put that detail into it.
Yeah, I think,
Um,
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Scott.
I was just gonna say, I think the plan, the restoration plan to show the extent and depth of material that's going to be removed and what's going to be there at the end. I'm still a little fuzzy on, I understand removing the drain. I think that really appreciate that. And the wall, but I'm not clear in my mind in terms of what fill is coming from where and to what extent and where that fill is going to be.
Right. And I guess information about what is the soil profile that you're trying to recreate here, we need some information about that to understand kind of how you're going to recreate a wetland, besides just moving the hydric soils around. Because we've talked, question for the commission, do you want a site visit this week again to try to ascertain the extent of the wetland? I think if they're willing to concede and say that they'll restore everything besides a 15-foot perimeter around the yard, I don't think it's necessary for us to do that. If they're saying that they're contesting that, then I think we want to get more information about the wetlands.
From my standpoint, Miriam, I'm really good with that, with the caveat that, again, I think knowing what the restoration profile, what's going to be taken
Can
out.
we stop the screen sharing? I don't know who's screen sharing right now.
So I agree with Scott. I think if they're gonna redo the plan with more detail in it, so we can actually see where everything is and what they're doing. With a
Okay.
description of what exactly that they're doing.
Okay. Beth, what do you think? You
Yeah,
okay?
no, same with me. I don't need another site visit. I just need
Okay.
a plan,
All right. So I'm going to revise this letter. But I'm going to take out some of the language. I would like to go over and make sure that this letter captures what we want to provide in writing. I think while we're having this verbal discussion, we do want to follow up with something in writing to just make sure we're all clear about what we're discussing and deciding on tonight. So should I screen share this letter so we can go over it? Is that okay? Yep.
Me personally, I would prefer 20 feet because there wasn't even a tree 20 feet from the house. Maybe one tree, but that's about it. Because I do have a dog, I was gonna fence in the backyard is all. But I mean, I don't know. I would prefer 20 feet. And I'll take the drain out, take the stone out, and then plant whatever you guys prefer,
Would be nice again to see a map with measurements.
Okay. I'm hearing that that's a concern for you, Mr. Mitchell, and what does the commission feel? What do they want to see?
What is the distance from the house to the drainage?
It was about 40 feet. So when we did the measurements, it was about 40 feet. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about it, Miriam, it's hard, we're discussing, 5 feet when in reality, I'm not really even sure what the extent of fill is in this location or if there was any. So I think
they're saying it's about,
So within 20 feet, there was like, whatever the grade was, stayed the same pretty much. And I just planted some grass seed. So,
there wasn't any soil disturb, you just planted, you didn't disturb the soil within that 20.
well,
no, they
I
did.
graded it a little bit, just like weeds and what, I don't know what was there, but I just
Mr.
kind of
Mitchell,
wanted some type of backyard. And I apologize because I should have definitely came to you guys and said, this is what I want to do. But now, I'm young, you live, you learn, so.
I do want to
apologize.
say that when we went out on May 27th, within 15 feet is where I sunk up to my ankles. So there was clearly at least 8 inches, maybe more of disturbance. And I mean, they're saying they didn't put in any fill in. I'm not sure, we can take them at their word. We don't have any proof otherwise, though. I will
Definitely
say
didn't put any fill in, none.
it
No.
did look awfully homogeneous. So anyway, and I, wondered, since they took out so many boulders, how they accomplished the same grade without adding something. But again, let me ask the commissioners. So do you want to condition this now in this letter or so that they come up with a plan for us, or what do you want to do around that particular issue around, because we're asking, Mickey was proposing a 15-foot when he first proposed this restoration plan.
I think Mickey said 15 to 20, I thought.
I think what I said was that when I looked at the aerial photos, it was really not definitive. So there was an area cleared around the house, but I couldn't tell that distance, and it was at least 15 feet.
The photographs we have from before show the whole area was covered with ferns. So it wasn't a lawn. It was a densely fern-laden area. The abutting neighbor gave some photographs from his driveway showing the fern cover. So again, I'm asking the commission, I'm going to screen share this letter and let's just talk about this so we can finish before we lose Robin. Robin, I know you got to go. So, all right, I'm sharing this. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
And, please, I'm just going to ask other people to mute themselves so the commission can try to make some decisions here. So thank you. Here's our proposal. We want some feet. We were asking for some action steps and I was going to give a time. I was going to say by Wednesday, the 27th, since we're meeting on the 28th, so we could review things on the 28th. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay. So findings first, that we find that the work was unpermittable. That was one of the questions. That we protect isolated resource wetlands over 1,000 square feet and treat the buffer zone as protected resource. We find that the grassy area around the house is within the 50-foot buffer zone of a protected resource area. We could say here under 2 that we're finding that that we're making a determination that the disturbed or impacted wetland area was jurisdictional under the bylaw. I think we need to say that. That's how would we say that? The commission finds further that the resource area impacted by the activities under this enforcement order meet the criteria for an isolated wetland, a protected isolated wetland, wetland under the bylaw. Oh, is that, we leave it at that? Is that okay?
It's good.
Yep.
Do we want to reserve judgment about whether it's actually a BVW? In case that's a question later. Judgment. Because we're not going out to confirm it.
What does that mean?
That means we're not making a decision about it, whether this resource area is a bordering vegetated wetland under the okay. Just means we're not making a decision about that. We find that the grassy area is within the 50-foot buffer zone because of the environmental sensitivity of this site. Any proposed work within the grassy area of this property will require a notice of intent. The commission does not approve the surface calculations and wetland delineations for the resource area. And then I have just the observations we made. And just saying, based on these observations, the commission finds that a significant portion, if not all of the disturbed area is part of a protected resource area. Just leave it at that. Is that okay?
I thought the fern you guys found was out in
Mr.
the,
Mr. Mitchell, I'm having a conversation right now with the commission, and I'm asking you please not to raise your hand if you would like to be called on, okay? Is that okay, guys?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. 5, given the site observations. So here I was thinking about asking for more information, but we're going to not do that. Yes. Okay. Now, we reserve judgment on the proposed restoration plan until additional information has been submitted. Specifically, we require the following. And so we're not going to ask them to revise the wetland delineations. We're not asking for a site visit, or are we? No.
No.
Okay. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Calculation of the square footage of the isolated wetlands. Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Inclusion of the 50-foot and 100-foot buffer zones under the act or the bylaw on the site plans, because they're not, we can't see what's in buffer. We can't see where the extent of the buffer zones are. Inclusion on the site plans of a delineation of both, and this could be two different maps, but the current, existing, and then the proposed boundaries. Because what he has is, he has the seeps mapped, but he doesn't have where he's going to put the future boundaries of the wetlands. So we need that mapped. Yes?
Yes.
A detailed planting plan with locations of plants, spacing. Oh, I guess I already have. That's, and soil profiles to be created. Could ask for like a cross-sectional diagram of the soil profile, but I think that's understood.
When you say soil profile, you're talking about the more or less the elevational depth of excavation in the soil versus
Yeah, and what are
soil
they doing?
profile of like the type of soil, like the soil horizon.
No, soil profile to be created, not the existing soil profile. We're not asking for that. We're asking them to model what they're going to be creating in order to create a wetland.
Like the depth of wetland is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's more details into how that can be done, but I guess I'll leave it to them to This was the recommendation from DEP, and it was in the DEP
Yeah.
restoration and recreation guide.
Yeah, and if it's the depth of the wetland, which I think is what you're talking about there, I think that's going to be really important. So thanks for.
And relocation of or removal of boulders on the restoration plan so they do not create a continuous physical barrier. Complete removal of the drain pipe and gravel and restoration of associated area in the restoration plan. Complete removal of soil stockpiles and brush debris, because right now there are piles of logs and stumps, and there's been no indication of what they're going to be doing with those. An erosion control plan for the site until it's stabilized and revegetated. Revision of the monitoring plan to accommodate at least 2 full growing seasons with an end date when the commission determines that the site has successfully been 80% revegetated with wetland plants. The monitoring plan should include site visits by the commission at least every 6 months. Monitoring should include or shall include inspection and remediation for invasive species. No termination of the enforcement order will be approved until the successful reestablishment has been verified. That was the recommendation from DEP, that that 1 year wasn't going to be sufficient. Inclusion of a site visit observation during the excavation work for the restoration was also DEP's recommendation, and notification of the commission 30 days prior to any transfer of the property until the enforcement order has been dismissed. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, sounds really good.
Okay, and we'll review this meeting at our next meeting on the 28th. Thank you. All right. Okay, any more comments or questions from Mickey or from Mr. Mitchell?
They're very clear. Thank you.
Okay. And do we want to give them guidance, because I didn't put it in here, about the 15 feet versus 20 feet?
I think we need to make a decision so they can delineate it on their plan.
Yeah, I think we need to have some clarity since it's been raised.
Well, you were out there, Miriam. It sounds like you were in the 15 foot and you thought it was, and we're not going to make them go back out and resample it. So
right,
based on what I heard, I would say 15.
I would say 15.
I agree on 15.
I agree.
Okay, so 15 it is.
So for clarification, is that from the building or from the deck that's out there? There's a little wooden deck out there.
Well, there wasn't any soil disturbance under the deck, so I would say from the perimeter of the building and the deck. I mean, where there's no deck, I would say it's the building, so it'd be the perimeter of the construction of the structure. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes, I think so.
Or do you want to say, because otherwise then it might be 5 feet from the deck, so that makes sense to me.
Yes.
What are you considering for a septic system?
Miriam?
Yeah.
I am sorry to interrupt this, but I need to
you have to go
to the airport and pick up my daughter.
Oh, that's fine.
Do we need to vote on this before she leaves?
Yeah, I would like to get a vote on the letter. So
so I'll make a motion to accept the letter as reviewed.
Okay. Second?
Sorry about that.
That's a second. Who seconds?
I'll second.
Okay, David?
Aye.
Stefan, aye. Harrington?
Aye.
Han?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I'll add the 15-foot piece to that letter with everybody's approval, since we already agreed on that.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Okay, thank
Tread
you
carefully,
for
Robin.
So,
letting me off. I thought 3
Yeah.
hours would
Yes.
be long enough.
Yes.
So I don't want to get into a whole long discussion about this. I was just curious, Mr. Mitchell, if you had an idea of where you were, what you were going to want to propose for the septic.
I've honestly just been working on the enforcement order.
Okay. All right,
That's
so
what
it
I've been
means
doing.
that you're gonna need, when you do want to do a septic, because of the proximity to the wetlands, you're gonna have to apply for a notice of intent. And you can.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
I had noted that in my letter. So there was a 2003 plan up on the hillside. They found 110 inches to groundwater, but it would go near the drain pipe from the septic to the house would go near these wetlands. So I had said that if they chose to put a septic in this location, they would need to file an NOI.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, all right. I think we're done for tonight. So thank you. And we will send you a digital copy of this letter, and then it'll be sent out by certified mail to the addresses we have. Were those all the correct addresses when we sent the last letter out?
Email is probably best, but yeah, if you want to send them, that's fine.
Yeah, we have to
Yes.
send it by certified
Email.
mail, but we will
Okay.
send it to you by email, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We appreciate your willing to work with us. We do want to get this resolved and let you move on with your project. So we're glad about that. And thank you, Mickey, for your input tonight. We appreciate it. All right. Okay, good night, everybody. Are we the motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, David.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
I got you out of order. Okay, and we will adjourning at 10:02. Thank you, Carrie.
Night all.
Okay, good
Hi.
night. Thanks,
Welcome.
Janice.
So sorry, before you leave, am I sending this to all three addresses?
Yeah, I think you have to send it to all three.
Okay.
Because I don't know if there's another owner, but you have to send it to all three addresses. Those are the addresses we have.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I will send you tomorrow morning all the documents that have to get mailed out. What time are you going to be doing it? What time do you need it by?
So I don't work until the afternoon, so anytime in like the morning, like earliest I could go is like 10, 11.
Okay, can we shoot for like 11?
Yeah, that's fine. The later is fine, or like
Okay.
I could do it as early as like 10 or 11.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I won't be before 10. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Night.
Night.